My psycho friend demands that I move into her house and help her raise her baby, saying that if I don't do this, then I'm abandoning her and her child. And honestly, this entire situation is insane and I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 27-year-old female and I reconnected with a childhood acquaintance recently when she moved to my city. My dad and her mom used to work together and we weren't close growing up, but when she moved to my city around 5 months pregnant, she reached out. I know how lonely it can be to move somewhere new, so I agreed to hang out and try to help her settle in. When I moved here, I didn't know anyone either, and now I'm the only one that she knows. At first, it was fine. I did little things such as driving her to look for apartments as she didn't have a car. I helped her run errands, and my dad even built her furniture when she got an apartment. My dad came to visit me for the weekend, and we spent it helping her settle in. She has no support system. The baby's dad is out of the picture, and she's unemployed. In fact, I'm not even sure how she's funding everything. I genuinely wanted to be kind and supportive. I even introduced her to some of my friends, and she was so rude to them, and then wouldn't stop talking poorly about them. But then things escalated. She started demanding I go with her everywhere. Doctor's appointments, grocery shopping, even to do nails. She started jokingly calling the baby our baby because I've been around so much. She will say things like, "Oh, our baby is craving fries from McDonald's," and then beg me to get them for her. She even offers to pay me. She refuses to use meal delivery apps because she doesn't trust that they won't do something to her food. And all of this has been going on for months. Well, fast forward and I'm a bridesmaid at my best friend's wedding, and I'm flying home to Puerto Rico for 4 weeks so that I can help out with a shower, rehearsal, wedding, and even organizing her closet in her husband's apartment while she's on her honeymoon. And for reference, I'm doing this because they don't live together until after the wedding. When my acquaintance came over and saw me packing, she absolutely lost it. She said I never told her about my trip. She said she was counting on me to be there for the birth, which will definitely happen while I'm away. I mean, I leave tomorrow and she's ready to pop any minute, and even expected me to move in with her for the first month after the baby was born just to help out, with her saying this is because I have nanny experience. She also told me that she was planning on me watching the baby on the days I work from home, which was 2 days a week. Well, I told her that I wasn't canceling my flight or shortening my trip, and now she's furious, saying that I'm abandoning her and the baby, that I'm all that they have. She's posting about me on social media saying that I betrayed her. Her mom, who lives in our state about 4.5 hours away, is commenting and even encouraging her. Well, I told my mom about this and she also said I was a bad friend to leave her and her baby when they needed me the most, that she agrees moving in is a lot, but also apparently I should be there during birth. I should only travel for the wedding and then I should come back and help out with meals and all this other stuff. She then said to me that she won't be picking me up at the airport tomorrow because she knows I'll do the right thing. So honestly, am I the jerk here? Because I seriously just don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, your friend sounds obnoxious. This is absolutely not your problem. First of all, you are not that baby's guardian or parent in any way, shape, or form. You're not required to move in and take care of this kid or to help out on days where you're working from home. That is stupid, that's crazy, and absolutely inappropriate. You're not married to this lady, you're literally just trying to be nice. So the fact that she's trying to be you're abandoning my baby, how dare you? It's dude, what are you talking about? This is your baby, it's not mine. I'm just helping you out to be nice, dude. What's going on right now? And you know what? Someone pointed out in the comments section that they can kind of understand why the baby daddy's out of the picture, because this lady is crazy. She's using you for your car, for your money, I mean, even your free time. Who is she to say that, no, you can't go to Puerto Rico, you need to move in with me and help me raise my baby? It's no, I don't have to do anything like that. I'm gonna go to Puerto Rico for 4 weeks and there's nothing you can do about it. So yeah, this whole situation is crazy and I'm so sorry that you're dealing with this, because your friend is absolutely insane. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I had my heart broken by a group of people that came into my restaurant who literally made fun of me behind my back and then left me $0 as a tip at the end of the night. And now, as a result, I feel like I'm way more guarded than I used to be at my job, and I no longer smile as much as I used to. And at this point, I really just don't know what to do. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so I was about a month into working as a server when I experienced this, and I sometimes still think about it. So it had just been a super busy night, and I was just recovering from a rush and bussing a whole bunch of tables. I then got told that I had a group group of 4 waiting to order. They were young adults, maybe in their late teens, early 20s. They were a diverse group with 2 men and 2 women, and each of them were attractive in their own way. After taking their order, I reiterated it back to them in my usual chirpy way that I was to customers. For reference, back then I was very high energy with all my tables. I loved meeting and talking to new people, and I didn't care that I had braces with rubber bands on and glasses because I just gave them my biggest smiles. And so they confirmed their orders and I went on my way. I wasn't even that far away when I suddenly heard loud laughter. There were some words I couldn't make out, but I heard a fragment of, "Oh, and look at the hair." And this was said amongst all of their laughter. And it was right then that I had this terrible gut feeling that they were making fun of me, but I just couldn't understand why they would be doing that. So I put in their order and I prepared for their table, all the while just dreading going back to their table. When the kitchen rang for their order, I was so tempted to ask someone else if they could deliver the food to them. But you know what? I just told myself that I had nothing to be afraid of, that God didn't give me a spirit of fear. Now, thankfully, they were cordial when I gave them their food, and the restaurant had cleared out a lot since we were pretty close to closing, and there was only a couple other tables. But even above the music, we could still hear their loud conversations about K-pop, especially one dude's voice. I could hear his opinions from literally across the restaurant. I did still keep an eye on the table while doing side work, ensuring that their water pitcher was filled and just seeing if they needed anything. One of the men kept glancing at me, so I went back to the table and I asked if they needed anything at all. And when I said this, I was met with literal crickets. None of them even responded, and one lady just gave me an awkward smile, so I just left the table. At that point, I was just so done with them. I left them alone until one guy came to ask for the check. I went back to their table to give them the receipt, and it was right when I was bussing tables when I heard laughter and someone saying, "Dang." Well, after a while, they filed out of the restaurant, and just as I suspected, they had not left any tip. They even wrote $0 where the tip was supposed to go. That event haunted me for like the next 48 hours. I couldn't think straight or prepare right for the final exam I had the next day. It just completely baffled me how they made me feel so awful and made it a point that they tipped me nothing. What's messed up was that I kept on wondering if I had done something weird, if I had offended them in some way or something like that. Because seriously, why would they treat me like that otherwise? I know I look like a stereotypical nerd, but like I need braces and my eyes were drying up from contacts, so I resorted back to glasses. Is it that offensive to look the way that I do? I couldn't make sense of their behavior no matter how much I tried. Well, I thought about it and I honestly just drove myself crazy, and I was completely distracted from studying for a final. It's sad to think about, but I've begun to think that some people are just cruel, no matter if they're younger or older, attractive or not. Maybe they wanted to demean somebody, like they felt like they had the power to do that, which honestly makes me sick to think about. So now I'm just so guarded with all of the customers, and I only let it down with regulars just a little bit. Yeah, that's indicative of like a culture of people who literally are just so toxic to one another, because I guarantee you the fact that they're making fun of you is evidence that they're probably making fun of each other in private. Like, these people hate themselves and they hate everybody else around them. Make no mistake about it. Like, seriously, these people are miserable and they're just trying to drag you down to their level. And you just happen to be a person who's like happy to be working and like doing a good job. So please don't let these losers, and yeah, these people are losers, take away from your happiness when it comes to your job. Keep having that high energy and keep greeting people with a smile, and don't be afraid to be yourself. Because seriously, these people suck and they should not inform what you do or don't do with your life. Am I the jerk for walking away from my friend during an argument while we were on vacation after she made yet another crappy remark at my expense? Because right now things are getting really weird in my friend group and I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 20-year-old male and I went on a Europe trip with my best friend who's a 22-year-old female. We were meeting up with a mutual friend in Portugal, then going to Spain to see where she lived and then traveling elsewhere. Now I gotta be completely honest, the trip was rough from the start. On day one, we fought because I teased her about not wanting to do anything before a noon train. She said I was invalidating her anxiety and then I just apologized. The next morning, she loudly announced that she didn't care about my apartment search and wanted to change topics, and then brought up the previous fight when I got quiet. Well, once our mutual friend arrived, the fights got more public. At a bar, she accused me of invalidating her again, raising her voice enough that people stared. I felt humiliated. Later, she criticized where I wanted to take a Zoom call, saying that I was prioritizing strangers' comfort over hers. In Spain, she got oddly territorial about our mutual friends. She answered questions for me, underlined every small mistake I made when I got tipsy, and even cut me out of conversations. My grandmother suggested she might be jealous, so I just gave her space. Things got worse when she started criticizing me directly, telling me I was too skinny, saying that I had a bad nose and I had bad skin and teeth. She even said that I might have an eating disorder or an alcohol problem, claiming that I was arrogant ever since I lost weight. Now, I brushed it off, but felt incredibly insulted, especially since she knows my family history with with addiction. On our last night, I mentioned maybe pulling an all-nighter before my flight, and this is where she snapped that I didn't understand her chronic headaches and claimed that she wouldn't be able to sleep anticipating me coming back. And then she loudly exclaimed that she never wanted to travel with me ever again. And when she said this, people started staring. Well, I held my tongue, but later while we were on the subway, I realized I was pressed. And when we got off, I walked ahead of her in silence. She then just apologized for the setting and not the feelings. But you know what? I just ignored her. At the hotel, I went for a walk instead of talking, and the next morning when I wished her a safe flight, she simply didn't respond. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because I honestly just don't know what to do anymore. Holy crap, no, you are not the jerk, dude. This lady is out of her mind. In my opinion, you don't really know someone until you travel with them, because if this didn't show her true colors, then I don't know what will. And I really mean it when I say, like, yeah, you don't know someone until they travel, because dude, I've experienced this, and this can be extremely eye-opening if you're not careful. So no, you're not the jerk. It sounds like she was absolutely the problem here, and in my opinion, I also would never want to go on a vacation with her ever again, because she sounds like a basket case that I absolutely would not want to put up with. An entitled jerk at Walmart demands that I give back his spot in line, despite the fact that he literally walked away and unloaded his stuff somewhere else. And I'm honestly just blown away because this is such an entitled thing to ask for. Here's what happened. Okay, so my daughter turns 4 this weekend, and against my better judgment, I decided to brave the general public and go get the non-perishables today so that I could start cooking tomorrow while my kids were at school. There were 3 checkout lanes open, and they were in the process of opening up the self-checkout, so I had no choice but to pretend to be as human as possible. And this is especially true since I didn't have any coffee at this point. I start to walk to the first line where there's a couple putting their items on the conveyor belt, but I guess the guy working the lane must have been going on break or something like that because he told them that he was actually in the process of closing the lane down. So the couple started putting their things back in their cart, and I went to the next open line. They ended up behind me in line not too long afterwards, and I didn't pay much attention to my surroundings because I was putting my stuff on the conveyor belt. I pivot my body to put the little plastic doohickey that separates your orders on the conveyor belt itself, and the guy speaks up and says, "You know, it wouldn't hurt you to let us go ahead of you in line here because you were behind us in line before. It would be the nice thing to do." When he said this, I was so confused. On what planet does that make sense? So I asked him, "So you want me to take all of my things off the belt back into my cart and go behind you just to be nice because you got in the wrong line earlier?" I'm sorry, that's not happening. And I will say in this entire interaction, his wife at least had the common decency to look embarrassed. She then whispered something to him and he didn't say anything further, allowing me to go about my business again because this was honestly such a weird thing to complain about. Okay, the second you unload your groceries and get out of that line is the second you no longer have any priority over that line. So the fact that this guy thought he could be like, "Okay, let me get back in line. I was ahead of you earlier." It's like, dude, you might have been ahead of me earlier, but guess what? That time's gone. You left the line and you decided to go somewhere else, meaning that you forfeited your spot and I have no obligation to honor that because seriously, this is such a weird thing to complain about and that guy was being super entitled. Today, I spilled a glass on a customer's lap, all because some weirdo kept getting in my face about taking his dirty dishes. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was cleaning tables as requested by customers because out of all the tables available, they had to sit by the ones with dirty dishes on them. I had my system of arranging the dishes in the tray to make it more efficient for filling and then cleaning. Now, I say tray because I don't know what the actual word is in English, and it's basically one of those boxes you collect the dishes in. Anyways, I'm holding the tray in one hand and I'm filling it with the other. Well, some idiot then sneaks up behind me and tries to load a bunch of dishes into this box. Well, when he does this, I explain both physically and verbally that I really will take it for him. I just need a moment so I can get my ducks in a row. But this guy literally just continues to get in my face. I've just picked up a glass and I automatically use that hand to make distance from the guy. And of course, some of the drinks in the glass spills on the lap of the guy whose table I'm clearing. And honestly, I already had a really stressful shift as it is, and this didn't help out one bit. Okay, that is so annoying. I can't stand customers who act like that because seriously, all they had to do was wait. You literally said to them like, "Oh, don't worry, I can get that for you. Give me just one quick second." And then here they are being like, "Take the glasses, take the dishes, do it right now." And the fact that you had to hold up a glass and be like, "Dude, give me some distance, get out of my face," must have meant that this guy really was like up in your business, straight up right in your face and being like, "Take the glasses, do it." So yeah, that's super obnoxious and I'm so sorry that happened. My neighbor decided to install a fence without knowing the property line. And despite the fact that I told him I don't want him doing anything with our yards until we know where our properties are, he decided to ignore that and do it anyways, putting me in a situation that I truly didn't want to be in. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my neighbor and I share one long side of our properties. This past Thursday, he hollered over to me as I was walking to my car to go to work, asking if it was okay if he put in an underground fence for his dog along our property border on Saturday. I then said that I wasn't sure where the property line line between our yards was, and he replied by saying, well, neither did he. So with that, I said I wasn't comfortable with either of us digging along the property line until we get it surveyed, which I even offered that I would start the process of getting my own lawn surveyed because this is something I've been wanting to get done as it is. He then said he had already scheduled the guy to come and install the fence on Saturday, but I reiterated that I would like if we could wait until we know where the property line is itself. I was already late for work, so the discussion ended, and that's the last I heard until this morning when I heard the machine start up outside and he proceeded to have the fence installed. When the guy got to the part of the yard that shares a boundary with mine, I went out and I asked where my neighbor was, but he literally wouldn't give me a straight answer, and I mentioned that I talked to him on Thursday and that we didn't know where the property line was. The guy then said to me, well, he likely owns at least a few inches off this sidewalk, which I don't know if that's true or not. The deed to my house says that my yard is 50 feet by 160 feet, and it is essentially a perfect rectangle. And in fact, my neighbor has his yard stuff, namely his gardens, his sidewalk, his chairs, and decorations, at an angle that gradually gets closer to my property as you walk south along the property. I honestly just feel so irritated about all of this. He asked me if I was okay with it, and I told him no, and then he was going ahead and doing it anyways, and that just feels incredibly inconsiderate. But he has always kind of annoyed me and felt overly nosy, so I'm really wondering if I may be overreacting about all of this. He also consistently walks across my yard without asking, and he's also set up his party guests on my yard before, again, without even asking me first. And these are both things I would never do to someone else. I feel our generational divide creates a lot of our friction because the way we perceive and understand the world is completely different from one another. What should I do? Oh yeah, this is some serious entitlement here. I can't stand people who act like this because this is like, oh yeah, I'm gonna ask for permission, but even if you say no, I'm gonna do it anyways. And here's the thing, this guy absolutely knows better, but he's doing it anyways. He's literally encroaching on your property because he's a jerk, and that's all there is to it. Now, if this was me, I would take the petty route and be like, okay, I'm gonna get a surveyor anyways and make him redig all this up and get it off my property. And then I would take the time to be like, okay, and now I'm gonna get a fence because you can't behave yourself, meaning that if it's in my space, you better believe you're gonna have to move it. Because seriously, this guy doesn't respect you at all. You told him no, and even then he's like, okay, well, I'm gonna do it anyways. So no, you're definitely not overreacting. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay rent to my late brother-in-law's parents for a property that I'm not even sure they own? Because right now things are really weird and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, I'm really looking for clarity and some help figuring out what's the right thing to do in this situation. I'm a 37-year-old female and I'm currently living in my late brother-in-law's condo, and we'll call him Jeff for the sake of the story. The condo is jointly owned by Jeff and his parents. Now, at the time of Jeff's passing, he was still legally married to my sister, although they were separated. That being said, they had been discussing reconciliation, and just a week before his death, he was still intimately involved with her. Now, despite this, Jeff's parents have refused to recognize my sister as his spouse. They've also taken possession of the 2 dogs that Jeff and my sister shared. One of the dogs has vet records listing my sister as the sole owner, and the other is listed as co-owned by both Jeff and my sister. It's been 2 months since Jeff passed away, and his parents have completely cut off communication with my sister, quite literally blocking her on all platforms. And at this point, she's now hired a lawyer and is beginning the probate process to claim what is legally hers, including any portion of Jeff's estate that she may be entitled to. Well, as for me, I had been paying monthly rent directly to Jeff through Apple Pay, even though we never signed a formal lease. But after everything that's happened, I've decided to stop sending payments to his parents until they agree to speak with my sister and address her rightful claims. And now, in response, they threaten to involve the authorities. I'm actively looking for a new place to live, and I plan to move out as soon as possible, but in the meantime, I'm honestly left wondering if I'm the jerk for getting involved. Should I have stayed out of this completely, or did I have any kind of justification for kind of like throwing my hat in the ring? What should I do? Okay, honestly, I would not pay them a single cent. You're paying Jeff the money, not the parents. And from the sounds of it, it doesn't even seem like this is their property to begin with. Like, if anything, this is going to go to your sister and not to the parents. And also, the fact that the parents are being so toxic towards your sister and they're trying to be like, oh yeah, you're not actually his spouse. Like, that's crazy to me, and that is so dumb. Not to mention them like taking the dogs away from them. Like, dude, I would lose my mind if that happened to me. So no, you're not the jerk for not paying them, because I think if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. My entitled mother can't listen to anything without making it all about herself. And after dealing with this for years, I'm honestly at the end of my rope and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, to try and paint a picture of what I'm dealing with, if anyone says something positive, my mother says that she did it better. Like, she said her friend bought a nice Louis Vuitton purse and was really happy about it, and when she showed my mother, my mom scoffed and said that she had a Chanel bag that was more expensive. Every time I talk about anything, she always relates it back to a story about herself. Like, even if I said I went to the park, she will talk about how she went to Disney World a few years ago and it was super fun. If I ever complain about anything, she will simply not listen and then say that she has it worse and then just start complaining about things in her life. Like the other day, I said I was annoyed about something my sister said, and she started complaining even louder and saying that she had a fight with her brother and was still angry about it, which wasn't even related. The funniest thing is that she will literally talk at you for hours. Like on family road trips, she talked for a full hour complaining about random crap our dad did, and we just didn't say anything because we couldn't get a word in. And then when my brother said, "Oh, that's annoying," he said that to me too, and started to talk about something recent that happened, she then just straight up cut him off after 2 sentences and said, "Let's think about happy things to enjoy the trip. No negative topics, please. Let's stay positive." And this is by far one of the most exhausting things I've ever had to deal with. Okay, dude, I cannot stand this. This is so annoying, and this really would be the thing that would break me and probably make me lose my cool. Like, I love talking with people and talking about what's going on in my life, but the second a dialogue becomes a monologue where they're just trying to one-up everything you say, that's when I tune out and I'm like, okay, I'm never talking to this person about anything ever again, because what your mom is doing is incredibly obnoxious.
An entitled mother demands that I serve her fully grown kid an alcoholic beverage, but it turns out she's lying, and when I confront her about it, she loses it. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I'm in the UK and the legal drinking age here is 18. Yes, there are nuances that I'm obviously aware of, but these do not apply in this instance. I work in an extremely busy pub that sells drinks and takeaway cups to drink outside, an especially popular option in the summer when this story happened. And for the record, I'm a female in my late 20s. So the entitled mother and a kid come in at the busy bar. I clocked them when they walked in. The kid looks around 15 years old. At the point where she is ordering her drinks to take away, the kid is outside. She orders a pint of Scrumpy, which is a strong, still traditional cider, along with a Coca-Cola without saying a word, dispassionately prodding the signage with her manicured finger without even registering my existence. I repeat her order back to her, pour her drinks, and tell her how much. She ignores my offered hand and drops a note and a pile of coins on the bar barely within awkward reach. I politely ask her if she wouldn't mind putting the coins in my hand. She ignores me and says, "Keep the change," and walks out. After she leaves, I awkwardly pretzel myself around many ale pumps to fumblingly pick up the coins from the bar, count them out, finish a transaction in the till, and pop the extra 5p in the tips jar. Then I go on to serve the next customer. A few minutes later, I'm aware of her beckoning me from over at the no service end of the bar, holding the pint of Scrumpy. I make eye contact and give her a nod. Then I turn to finish serving the customer I just poured a drink for. The entitled mother from across the room says, "Excuse me." Hang on a minute, please. I'm just serving this man. "Excuse me." I finish serving the man and I go over to her and say, "Is everything okay?" The entitled mother, thrusting the pint into my hand, says, "This cider is completely flat." Sorry for the confusion, but it is a traditional Scrumpy and it's meant to be The entitled mother patronizingly interrupts me and says, "I know what cider is supposed to be like. This is flat. I want you to pour another one in a fresh glass and maybe put some life into this one." Can I suggest you might want to try a different cider? We have a hard cider on a keg that might be more of what you were expecting. "I ordered what I wanted. What I was expecting was that you might know how to pour a pint. Do you want to try again or shall I ask him to pour it for me?" She points at my male colleague. "Excuse me?" "My son barely had a sip of it and now he won't even drink it." Me, now being shocked, said, "You gave that to your kid?" The entitled mother, sputtering a little, "Yeah, well, he's over 18. "Is he?" I had seen him and he certainly does not look a day over 15. The entitled mother must have noticed at this point that she was losing because the next thing you know, she's gesturing towards the pints of Scrumpy that's still in my hands. "Oh, just give it back. I don't have time for this." "I'm sorry, but I can't do that." "I have paid for that." I get the money plus her 5p tip from the till and extend it towards her. She won't take it. "I want the drink that I paid for." "If you can come in with your son and a valid photo ID proving that he is of..." The entitled mother interrupts with bits of spit flying, screaming, "He
is my son! He doesn't need an ID! I'm with him! I am his mother!
I'm sorry, but it is the law. Please take your money. I don't want an argument.
Fine, it's for me!
I place the cider on the back bar out of her reach. I close my eyes, take a deep breath. 3, 2, and before I hit 1,
I want to speak to your manager!
yep, there it is. I haven't even opened my mouth yet to tell her that I am the manager, but she is striding over to my male colleague, who has clearly been rubbernecking while serving customers and cannot wait to get involved.
I need to complain about your employee. She has no customer service skills and clearly doesn't know how to pour a pint.
My colleague, who can barely keep a straight face, says, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I'll make sure she's fired immediately."
Now you'll pour a decent pint, won't you?
No, my pints are trash. The entitled mother, shocked, says,
What?
"Not gonna do it. 8% scrumpy isn't the best gateway for kids, by the way. Just saying." The entitled mother sputters and storms out, muttering something about leaving a bad online review. I turn to my colleague and say his name reprimandingly. "Colleague, you should not have said that." "Sorry, I couldn't help it." I followed up saying, "You shouldn't have said that your pints are trash. Your pour is a lovely pint." So am I the jerk for not believing this mother's kid was of age and refusing to pour for her? Why does the mother want so badly for the kid to drink? That is really strange. Is the kid the one that's pulling the strings in this mother-son power dynamic here? And once she's already revealed that the drink is for him, the OP here, the bartender, could get in a lot of trouble for serving something to someone who's not old enough. For those of you guys that are bartenders, let me know what happens. Do you lose your license or something else? I'm sure there's probably a lot of consequences to this. The mother has the audacity to be this rude to somebody that's just working and leaving the coins all over the bar where she can't reach them, and then comes back demanding something that is illegal. I mean, in the off case that the kid is actually of age, I guess he could have just came in there and showed his ID, but that wasn't the case here, or else he probably would have done it. What would you do if you were the bartender here, and jerk or not a jerk, and why? Am I the jerk for making all of the women in my family leave after they all showed up to my wedding wearing white? I'm a 33-year-old male and I have a large family, mostly aunts and female cousins, aside from mom, stepmom, stepsister, and grandmother. I don't know how to say this, but all of those women I mentioned above are into teasing and joking. They formed into a unit, which I admit is kind of toxic, and they tease and roast every new woman that enters the family by marriage by setting up tests to see if they deserve to be a part of the family, or roast their looks and styles to the point of breaking their confidence and their self-esteem down. Then, after a few months of teasing, they'd announce that they finally welcomed them into the family. The newest member would join in on the teasing too, which is crazy, as my dad says. When I first introduced my then girlfriend, now wife, I made it clear that I didn't want any of the women in the unit to come at her or harass her, not even with a single word. They went behind my back and roasted her looks and her job, and I discovered that they've been doing it on Facebook. I had them apologize one by one after they gave the "we're just testing the water to see if she's capable of being a part of the family" excuse. They didn't want to apologize, but once I said I wouldn't invite any of the unit unless they apologized, including my mom, everyone immediately apologized and bought gifts for my wife. First of them was my stepmom and my sister-in-law. My wedding was 2 weeks ago. There was talk about the women in my family wanting to pull a prank on my wife by wearing white and called it the ultimate test to see how my wife reacts. My brother warned me, so I announced that if any one of them showed up in white, I'd have them kicked out, including my mom. They said this wasn't true and they'd never do such a thing, but they showed up to my wedding one by one wearing white dresses, and each and every one of them was told to leave. After, they tried giving excuses by either making scenes or getting the men involved. The senior women of the unit, who are my mom and aunts, also showed up in white but refused to leave. I threatened to take harsher actions, and my mom was pissed, telling me to step aside, but I didn't let her in. I had her leave while the men in the family were watching stunned. My dad was on my side and supported me a lot. I felt absolutely awful because my wedding was being interrupted by them making scenes. My wife was hurt beyond measure, but the women in my family were pissed. My cousin blasted me on social media later, saying I excluded all of the women from the wedding because my wife was so insecure that she couldn't handle another woman's presence at her wedding. I had an argument with them and my mom berated me, saying it was supposed to be a prank, but I said that they were taking it too far. My mom said I took it too far by kicking them out because they were just trying to get a reaction from my wife to see if she was one of those quote bridezillas, and we're gonna change as soon as the prank was over, but I ruined my own and entire wedding by reacting acting so aggressively. I stopped talking after she said I had to bring my wife and apologize. I haven't seen a lot of them in 2 weeks and they've excluded me from everything. I just want to explain that A, this has been happening for years. The men in the family are split on this behavior. Some of them encourage it, like my uncle and my cousin's husbands. One is now an ex. And some are against it, like me and my dad and my brother. B, the women claim that there's nothing hurtful in what they do because they claim they're just looking out for us men and that their goal ultimately is to make sure the women who enter the family are decent. C, my dad always ends up arguing with my mom and grandmother since they're the ones who started this whole thing with their behavior and attitude towards other women. And lastly, D, I'm not sure if I should mention this, but my male cousin who's a middle schooler said he'd make sure to leave the country before ever meeting any woman because of this, and it made me chuckle. Also, the dresses they showed up in were simple white dresses, nothing over the top, but they were still white dresses. I realized they went ahead with their plans even after I stated what I'd do in that case. So, was I the jerk for how I handled this? So essentially, this whole thing that the mom and the aunts came up with is sort of a hazing process to, I guess, weed out women that can't make it through it before they enter into the family. And that may be the case as the woman is entering the family, but why does it have to bleed onto the wedding day? For a lot of people, they see that as a very sacred day. And even in the context of their hazing, shouldn't she have already been accepted by the point of the marriage? Or if not accepted, rejected? Why would you still have to be doing tests on the actual day of the wedding? That's the part of the whole plan that seems inconsistent to me. The OP here even describes the unit that the women have formed in his family as being toxic. So the question becomes, how do you deal with a toxic family unit that is perpetually doing these sort of tests to anyone that is coming into the family? Let me know how you would handle it if this was your family, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for sending an employee home to change? For the record, I am a female. I am a 23-year-old senior software engineer. Part of my job oversees a group of 8 other programmers. I do not enforce a dress code. I'm fine with other programmers wearing t-shirts and tank tops as long as they are not outrageous in nature. But one thing that I will never tolerate is visible underwear. Recently, I hired a new employee. She is the only other female on board of the 9, including myself. She's extremely intelligent with excellent problem-solving skills, but I've had to reprimand her 3 times in the 2 weeks she's been with us about my no visible underwear rule. She refuses to wear a racer back bra whenever she wears a tank top. It's distracting because my desk happens to be directly behind hers, meaning I have to look directly at her visible bra straps all day while working. This morning was the last straw when she arrived wearing a turtleneck tank dress. I have an outfit similar to hers and I thought it was a very professional look. What wasn't professional about it, however, was that her bra straps were hanging out and about to fall down. I called her into a vacant office room and I told her that I was sending her home until she concealed her straps. I tried making it clear that coming to work with visible underwear was unacceptable. She left and came back an hour later, but she was at her desk crying. I apologized and I said that I didn't mean to upset her, as well as how she will make a great contribution to our programming team, but she still seemed upset. I still stick by my rule, but was I a jerk by raising my voice at her and sending her home? I want to make the work environment distraction free. I've never really thought of that as the same thing as underwear. I guess you could technically see it that way, but even so, it's kind of hard to relate to why that would bother someone so much. I think the OP probably thinks this is more universal than it actually is, but people are bothered by all sorts of stuff all the time, and this just happens to be one thing that bothers the OP. Some people are suggesting to this person that had to go home and change to just not wear a bra anymore then. If there's no bra, there's no straps. And if they did that, I wonder if that would change the OP's opinion on it since there's technically no underwear showing. Do you think that sending her home to change was too harsh, or do you think it makes sense in a situation like this? Let me know down below in jerk or not a jerk and why. Am I the jerk for getting professional photos done with my dog? I don't have kids, I've never wanted kids, and now I will never have kids because of a procedure over a year ago. But I do have my dog, a border collie that'll be 4 in December, and she is my baby. When I first got her, I decided to get photos done with her since a photographer friend was hosting a fall special. Then I did it again the following year when she turned 2, and I went all out and even included a doggy smash cake, and she wore a tutu. The photographer submitted the photos to an online publication that was accepted, and the photos were a hit. And now getting these family photos done has become a tradition. I had actually planned on skipping photos this year, but Delilah had some terrible health issues and almost died. So I decided to go for it. I booked the photos for this upcoming Thursday and even bought a dress for the occasion. I was telling a different friend about it and she made a smart aleck comment about how I have more professional photos with my dog than she does with her own children. And now it has made me sad second guess getting the photos done. Her comment came off as patronizing. So am I the jerk for getting professional photos done with my dog? Without knowing who the friend is and what their history is, it sounds like she was probably just making a harmless joke about, wow, you really love your dog, you got a lot of photos, more than I have with my kids. I doubt the friend was trying to discourage the original poster here from taking more photos with the dog. But again, it's hard to know unless you actually know this person. But even if that was the case, who cares what this person says? Take as many photos with your dog as you want. If people think it's weird, so what? People think everything is weird. It's definitely not hurting anybody, but let me know how you guys see this. A jerk or not a jerk, and why? Am I the jerk for refusing my husband's ancestral paintings and furniture? My husband's grandmother was a prolific and talented artist who specialized in large oil paintings. After his grandfather passed away and we moved into a new home, his family gave us 3 paintings. I love 2 of the paintings and loathe the 3rd, which I only put up with because it's my husband's favorite. It's a large post-apocalyptic scene of ostriches in a Roman ruin with skies of magenta. It now hangs in our office, though he plans to move it to the living room. Either way, I'm forced to look at it every day. Recently, his family cleared everything out of his grandfather's home for sale. My mother-in-law has been trying to get us to adopt Grandpa's dining table. We talked it over and agreed that we didn't want it, but she keeps bringing it up. She has the dining table in her garage now, even though she has 2 of her own. On to the issue. Yesterday, we were with his parents and his aunt and his uncle. His mom took me aside to show me a very big painting of sunflowers. She's been messaging me about this one for a while and I've never expressed any interest. I told her that I felt ambivalent about it and that the sunflowers themselves were gorgeous, but I didn't like the leaves and that the painting looked unfinished. After dinner, his aunt asked if we wanted to take any other unwanted paintings home. In front of everyone, my husband picked out a couple of paintings and asked what I thought. I made a face and said that I just didn't like either of them. He said that wasn't very nice and that I am inflexible. I did agree to bring home 2 of her prints. So am I the jerk for refusing all of these ancestral paintings and furniture? I may be the jerk because we have a large house with plenty of rooms for paintings. I also feel that I could have expressed myself more tactfully. Maybe I shouldn't have given my honest opinion of the paintings. My mother-in-law probably thinks that I am a jerk, but I don't want my house to become a shrine to my husband's grandparents. So am I the jerk? In a case like this, the OP's husband shouldn't have just put her on the spot like this when he already knows that she wasn't totally 100% on board with all these paintings. But it seemed like he did that as some sort of strategic move where he knew that if he asked her in front of everyone, she wouldn't be able to say no. And then later on, he would be able to say, well, you said it was okay, but in front of all these people that I'm sure she wants to keep a healthy relationship with. Just because you don't like the painting doesn't mean you don't like the people who made the painting or the people that are related to the people that made the painting. And if she doesn't want it in her house, she doesn't want it in her house. At this point, they already have several of them. But how do you guys see the situation? Jerk or not a jerk, and why? Am I the jerk for telling my cousin about the light bulb mouth fact? I'm a 19-year-old female. My cousin is 22 years old and he's a male. We were hanging out last Friday and we were just chatting away while eating some nachos. I bring up the fact about how you can fit a light bulb into your mouth, but you can't take it out. He just says, huh, and we continue talking. Well, I guess he didn't believe me because he tried it Tuesday night. From what I gather from his story, he started yelling and his mother, my aunt, who's 64 years old, came upstairs to check on him. When she saw that there wasn't a way to get the light bulb out of his mouth, she took him to the emergency room. I'm not sure how, but they removed it without hurting him. He called me yesterday and he was pissed. He said that if I didn't say anything, he wouldn't have tried it. I thought that it was total BS and started arguing back that he made a stupid decision that wasn't on me. Well, my aunt was in the same room and he gave her the phone to talk to me. She explained that it might have been his decision, but I still opened the door for it to happen. She compared it to someone leaving a drug on the counter and how it's both the person who laid the drug on the counter and the person who used it. The analogy made sense and I feel really guilty now. However, I'm still torn on whether I'm the jerk or not. I feel like I'm just being stubborn and I'm not really sure what to think. Any judgment would be greatly appreciated. Am I the jerk? The cousin is a 22-year-old fully grown man and he stuck a light bulb in his mouth. This is not some little kid we're talking about here. And the whole leaving a drug on the counter versus the person taking a drug on the counter doesn't really apply at all. In that situation, unless the OP knew that that person was addicted to whatever drug that was, why would they just randomly take a drug they would find on a counter? If you leave a bunch of Advil on the counter, is somebody going to go up and just take all those Advil because they're there? No, probably not, unless they already have pre-existing issues. But beyond all that, why would anyone willingly put fragile glass into their mouth and think that it was going to be fine? That makes no sense. I probably don't even have to say this, but please never do this. But who do you think is in the right? Who's in the wrong? Jerk or not a jerk, and why? My mother made me homeless, and in exchange, I took everything from her. Her home, her children, her job, and her entire life. This is a revenge story against one of the worst mothers of all time. My mother treated me beyond badly for most of my life, as well as my younger siblings. I had to drop out of college and support myself after she drove me to homelessness. She proceeds to laugh at me about being homeless and denies all of her abuse. So, I ruined her life by getting my younger siblings removed and getting her arrested, making her lose her job, reporting her to the IRS, and set her up so that the remainder of her life is full of disaster and hardship. Here's what I did. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. Backstory. My mother was a really terrible person. I have 4 other siblings, 1 older sister and 3 way younger, 3 different dads. Before I was born, I'm male by the way, my oldest sister was taken away from my mother when she was a few months old because she tried to slice the father of my sister while he was holding her. She lost custody and the dude left her. Older sister goes to live with her father's family in a different city. Cue little old me coming into this world. My dad went to jail for 2 to 3 years after I was born for a while. I rarely saw him. He's an alcoholic if that matters. She was a single mother but made it work, and she worked hard. One of her bigger problems was that she took out all of her aggression and hatred of my father on me, as well as work and stress, etc. She dealt with unspeakable acts happening to her growing up, which I'm sure definitely affected her relationships and how she treated me as well. Anyways, cue the beyond terrible treatment of me from the age of about 4 to 5 to about 17. Every day was hell. She was extremely strict and her perspective was warped. She was also pretty big in stature and had a lot of strength. Examples of her being terrible: I've gotten beat up once because her room was dirty. The dishes weren't washed and I got beaten as soon as I got home, even if there weren't dishes when I left to go to school. If I walked too loud, I'd get beat up. She broke my nose for looking at her the wrong way on my birthday when she bought me a cake that I was allergic to. It had peanuts and she knows that I'm slightly allergic but feigned ignorance. It was more or less every day or every other day. She used her fists, elbows, extension cords, hangers, chairs, canes, bats, etc. Whatever she could find. I could never escape to my room for long because she would always call me every few minutes to get her things or to yell at me. She never drank or did drugs or anything like that. Whenever she was upset and I happened to be in front of her, she'd kick me down the stairs to make me hurry up. She's put a knife to my neck before and had to be forcibly stopped by her boyfriend at the time. Burned my Christmas presents from other people. She didn't get me anything that year, and just really other nasty things. The one thing I will say, she tried really hard to make up for it with video games and electronics, etc. It didn't make a difference to me though. It never helped. She controlled most aspects of my life. I got by with little petty revenges, peeing in the Lipton iced tea she drank, rubbing her forks and spoons between my butt cheeks before I served her dinner, ignoring her screams for help when she had kidney stones. How am I supposed to help anyways? But by the time I got to high school, I turned to drink. I resented her and the negative atmosphere affected who I was as a person. I started to be cold and uncaring, calculated. She started kicking me out every few months, telling me to find somewhere else to live. At 15, she sent me away to a different country for a year and tried to keep my passport, but I made it back to the United States with the help of the embassy and my stepfather. She'd already left by that time and found some other dude. I came back senior year with no credits for the prior grade, which ended up with me getting a GED. I spent most of the time I could with my best friend and started working pretty crappy jobs. I was terrible at saving and I had accumulated loads of bad habits while growing up, so it didn't make much difference. She eventually told me that if I went to college, I would always have a place to live until I finished. Cue my first 2 semesters at a 2-year college. I maintained a 3.7-ish GPA. My teachers loved me and it was my escape. Towards the end of my second semester during finals, I came home late one night around 10 p.m. and my mother yanks open the door, screaming in my face, asking when I'll move out. I'm slightly sloshed and decide to completely ignore her and walk to my room. If I opened my mouth, that day would be the day that I blew up and cursed her out. I've rarely ever raised my voice at her because it never ended well. Now at this point, I'm 19 years old and I've been doing school full time with no savings. I'm also fairly fit and could easily take my mom at this point. I never laid a hand on her or any woman. I hate violence. I get to my room, she rips open my door and starts yelling. I say nothing and stare at her. She walks away and calls the police on me, saying that she thought that I would murder her and my younger siblings. I don't know where she got that idea from, as she's the one who nearly killed me many times. I packed everything into a duffel bag and left 5 minutes afterwards. I failed all of my finals because I couldn't make it to my school. Things kind of spiraled, and the next 2 to 3 years were me on and off homeless. I survived the best I could in a big city with no college degree and made a lot of bad choices due to my bad habits. Eventually, I found a profitable hobby that gave me meaning, and through that, I started to work my way up. I got my own apartment, had a full-time job, and did my hobby on the side. I hadn't kept contact with my mother at all, but my younger sister, who was old enough to have a phone, found me on social media, so I saw photos and such. She didn't have it anywhere near as bad, but she did get struck occasionally. My mother reached out via email, all smiles, asking how I've been. Now guys, I've always been envious of the relationship most people have with their mothers, so I gave her a chance and I gave her a call. We talked for a few minutes and everything was civil and seemed like things would be okay, but then she asked me what I've been up to these last few years, and I told her honestly that I was homeless for a while and I struggled a lot after what she did to me, but I worked my way out of it. She literally laughs. She laughed for a few seconds in a very condescending kind of chuckle and then said,
"Well, I never did a thing to you, so you don't know what abuse is. It's your own damn fault you were homeless. So how about you?"
But by that point, I hung up. I was speechless and fuming. I don't know what it is. Okay, B, I've spent too long letting you destroy my sanity. Now is the time. There were a few things my mother didn't know. One, I knew for a fact that the current well-paying job she had was gotten on lies, as she had never got her college degree and lied about it on her resume. Two, I had access to all of her email accounts and cloud storage accounts since I was the one that set them up when I was younger, and she never changed her passwords. Lastly, she definitely wasn't aware that from 13 years old and on to the last time she struck me, I took photos of all of the bruises, marks, wounds, bloody noses and saved them to my computer and then Google Drive. And on top of that, my little sister had been sending me photos via social media of the bruises she got from her. The first thing I did was compile all of those photos and videos into one folder. I then reached out to CPS in my city and explained what was happening to my siblings and what happened to me in the past, and I had mountains of proof. When I was hired at my job, they promised me a raise after 6 months. When the time came, they went back on their word and did not honor our agreement. So because of that, I managed all of their computer systems in a way so that only I could fix something, and then I left. Almost immediately, they came crawling back to me begging me for help to get their systems back online, and I agreed. But at my new consulting rate of $200 an hour or $400,000 a year, they had no choice but to accept. Here's how I did it. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I work in software development using very in-demand and complex frameworks and tools. The average salary doing what I do in my area is around $110,000 a year for a relatively simple, low-level job. By this, I mean a position where the employee does not have major responsibilities, works as part of a much larger team, etc. I worked on site and then remotely as a contractor for 3 years for a company hereafter named The Company while I was at university. As a contractor, I was the only developer in the entire company of a few hundred people and was solely responsible for all systems, development, testing, etc. This includes databases, web servers, and much more. This seems like a lot. It was, but I had full control of my environment and autonomy. I worked on the software projects that I wanted to and felt would have the most impact. During that period of remote work, upper management was changed. After completing my schooling, I received an offer from the company for $70,000. I knew this was below what I should be making, but I also realized the following. Number one, I had full autonomy in my environment. Number two, I had some gaps in my skill set. And number three, by staying in this environment, I could fill those gaps and very easily prepare to transition to another higher paying job. So new management and I reached an agreement. I would accept a salary of $72,000, and then after 6 months time, we would meet to go over my salary and it would be increased by at least 15%. This was included in my offer letter, which both new management and I signed. Fast forward to 6 months later, I have now filled every gap in my skill set and expanded on it to increase my skill set even more. The 6-month marker rolls by and nothing happens. I send new management repeated meeting requests and they are ignored. 3 weeks into the 6th month, I go to HR and raise the issue. HR, Human Resources, turns ghost white and makes the meeting happen. That afternoon, new management comes into my office and offers me a 1% raise. That is correct, a 1% raise. I kept my cool though and reminded them that I was guaranteed at least 15% per our agreement. New management completely denied making this agreement and repeated their previous offer. I brought out my offer letter with both of our signatures on it and they started backpedaling. They said that they would talk and get back to me. I made it very clear that if I did not receive the agreed upon amount, we would have a problem. Fast forward to 2 weeks later, new management invites me into their offices. I am then offered a 6% raise. They tried to make excuses about budget restrictions, fairness to other employees, and whatever they could think of. I knew I had these options. Number 1, quit. Number 2, demand the 15%, possibly get it but severely damage my relationship with new management. Or number 3, accept the 6% raise and maintain a strong positive relationship with new management, allowing me to blindside them later. The wheels in my mind spinning, I agreed to the 6% raise. At that moment, I decided what I would do. I would take the raise, use the remainder of my time there to look for another job, and leave. A few months passes though, and my plan expanded. I began implementing the most cutting-edge technology, using the most modern frameworks, upgrading everything I could as aggressively as I could. Of course, this provided immense benefit to the company. That was the plan. I entrenched myself in every system in every way possible, increased the skill floor for my position as high as I could get it, and left. 4 months after I accepted the raise of 6%, I accepted an offer for a salary of $130,000 at another company. I put my 2 weeks notice in at the company and all hell broke loose. New management knew they had messed up and they were completely blindsided that I was unhappy with my position. Since I had graciously accepted the 6%, they thought they were off the hook. With me, I took all knowledge of almost every one of their systems. New management freaked out, so I did what any capitalist would do. I offered to come back as a remote contractor for $200 an hour. They had no choice but to accept. So over the last few months, I have been charging them $200 an hour to do the exact same thing I was previously doing for significantly less. Now, instead of being out a few $1,000s a year due to my raise, they've been out of over $35,000 in a few months with no end in sight. I even hired one of my good friends to help fill the hours. The money is nice, but the look on new management faces when this played out was priceless. It was the sweetest revenge of my life. I want to add that I never did anything unprofessional towards my fellow employees or employer. I am not billing inflated hours, sabotaging, or anything like that. Everything I did and have done is honest work. So am I the jerk for putting the company in a position where they have no choice but to pay me $200 an hour because they wouldn't honor their original agreement? This is pretty wild. If you just do the math on this, he's obviously not doing 40 hours a week because he's a contractor here, but if he were to, that would be a salary of $8,000 a week. And if you extrapolate that across an entire year, assuming he only works 50 out of 52 weeks in the year, that is a salary of $400,000. 416 if you were to do every week, but at just 50 weeks, that's $400,000. So when you look at it that way, the meager 15% bump up that he wanted to get before he started working doesn't seem like very much at all. And the thing is, he didn't just try and come at them with their raise while he was already working there. That was a stipulation that he set up before they even started working together at all. So they can't even pretend like they were blindsided or that it's an unreasonable ask, because he probably wouldn't have started working there in the first place if they didn't agree to that raise after the 6 month period, of course. And he obviously made it very clear in the post that he's not sabotaging them. In fact, he's giving them the best, most efficient technology possible. So in the long term, when more people develop these specific skills, the company will probably be in a better position overall. It's just probably going to be a financially painful transition to even get there in the first place. It seems like people are split split on this one. Some people think that what he did was nefarious and kind of shady to the company, but other people think it was totally justified. But let me know how you see this down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for faking food poisoning to teach my boyfriend a lesson? So my boyfriend, who's 28, and I am a 26-year-old female, both love to cook and are very good at it. We often make meals together and it's something we really bond over. However, he has a serious issue with cross-contamination that drives me insane. As a result, I feel like I have to constantly keep my eye on him to make sure that he is sanitizing things properly. It frustrates me that I feel like I have to watch him, and it frustrates him whenever I point out something he's done that seems unsanitary. Last Friday evening, we were making carnitas when I noticed that he was using the same knife and cutting board that he had used to chop raw pork to then chop up onions and radishes. I could literally see red splotches on the cutting board from where the meat had been sitting. I pointed out that whenever I need to cut both meat and produce, that I always do the produce first. That way I can use the same knife and cutting board without having to worry about cross-contamination. I then told him that we couldn't use the onions and radishes for this dish because I was not about to top my carnitas with them now that they were contaminated with raw pork. He flipped out and kept saying, "It's not like it's chicken." And I said, "So what? It's still raw meat and there's still potential for foodborne illnesses." He wouldn't let it go. So finally, I was like, "Fine, I'll eat your tainted produce," which pissed him off further. He stormed off into our bedroom and refused to finish cooking with me. Without him knowing, I cut up new onions and radishes for garnishing, and we ate dinner separately. The next day, we were supposed to go to his parents' place as they were hosting a congratulatory dinner because my boyfriend recently got a new job. In the morning, I faked being ill and hung out in bed watching Netflix and reading most of the day. He seemed baffled by me being sick, and I said, "I don't know, I did eat those onions and radishes that you were so pressed about." He looked irritated after that, but he seemed to believe that I was actually sick. When it came time to start getting ready to head out to his parents, I said I was still too ill and ended up staying at home. His mother messaged me later on explaining that it was extremely rude of me to have missed the dinner and that I should have taken some Pepto-Bismol or something so that I could be there to celebrate with them. I didn't even bother responding, and when my boyfriend returned home that night, I could tell he was bummed, but not mad, that I missed the dinner. Multiple people in his family are now pissed because they think that I am an unsupportive girlfriend. I do feel guilty about missing this dinner since it was important to him, but I was also at my wit's end, as I've tried to talk about the contamination thing with him nicely many times in the past, but he always gets pissed off about it and doesn't want to change his ways. Am I the jerk? Jumping into the future, there is an update. To start, many of you suggested that I purchase color-coded knives and cutting boards and that I have a serious discussion with him about the subject. These are things that I've done in the past, but I figured another try wouldn't hurt. I sat down with him and explained that although cross-contamination might not be a big deal to him, that it was to me, and that it would make me feel a lot better if he would please take my feelings into consideration. He promised me that he would be more careful, but then the next afternoon I saw him put a cutting board away without washing it after having chopped raw chicken on it. This obviously bothered me, but I decided not to say anything since we were fresh out of conflict. That same night, I took him to a nice dinner as a way to make up for missing the one at his parents' house. We had a lovely time and things seemed to be on the mend for a few hours. But later that night, however, he developed terrible food poisoning. And to make matters worse, he was supposed to start his new job the next morning and ended up calling in sick. He blamed me for it because he thought the food at the restaurant was what made him ill. I told him that I didn't see how it could have been that because we shared dishes and I was feeling fine. The following day, his mother called and let us know that she had just taken his dad to the hospital. Apparently, he had been feeling super unwell and we all assumed it was related to a chronic disease that he's had for a few years now. He ended up needing multiple blood transfusions and tests found none other than E. coli in his urine. In the days following, my boyfriend continued to miss work and I discovered that about half the people that attend his celebration dinner that weekend before ended up sick. A bunch of other stuff happened with his mother trying to blame me for, quote, getting people sick, but I won't even bother going down that rabbit hole at the moment. If you hadn't already guessed, my boyfriend got fired from his job without having worked a single day there. I guess not showing up on your first week isn't a good look. On the bright side, he has shown a sudden and intense interest in kitchen hygiene. Apparently getting sick himself and having his dad end up in the hospital is what it took. It's been a couple of weeks since this all took place. A lot of you suggested that I break things off, and at this point, I think it may be headed in that direction. So was I the jerk? For somebody who cooks that much, how has he made it this far in life without getting seriously sick in that way? It seems like that would have happened a long time ago, but maybe if he ever got sick before it was just mild and he attributed it to something else, but this time was really just the time that broke the camel's back, especially when it came to his dad, who already has a pre-existing health condition and was so sick with this E. coli that he had to go to the hospital. What's pretty unbelievable is that after all of this, he still blames the OP, the girlfriend here, on him getting sick because of the restaurant that she took him to. I mean, even if it was a restaurant that got him sick, how would she be the one to blame for that? She doesn't personally vet every single restaurant. Nobody does. And the chances of that even being the case are so small, it doesn't even make sense to bring it up since they were sharing the same food. But all of that is after the fact. Going back to the original question of being a jerk or not for faking an illness, yes, I think that that is not right. You shouldn't pretend to be sick to teach someone a lesson, even if you are technically correct about the science of it, the hygiene of it, however you want to describe it. In a situation like this, or probably in most situations, all situations, pretending to be sick to get your point across is just wrong. You're just actually lying to that person to try and prove a point. If you sit down with them and you tell them this is serious to me, I don't want you to do this, and they still disregard it, then yeah, you should probably break it off before you have to get to the point where you're teaching them a lesson by pretending to be sick. But maybe you see this totally differently. Let me know how you guys interpret the situation down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for refusing to stop wearing my favorite pair of pants? My girlfriend, a 23-year-old female, and I'm 22, we keep fighting over a certain pair of pants that I own and I love to wear. I love to wear them almost anywhere. When we go grab something from the local grocery shop, or when we go out and walk our dog, or when we're just chilling outside. They are light and airy, but also long, so I'm never too warm or too cold in them. They are probably my favorite pair to wear, and thus I wear them very often. My girlfriend, on the other hand, thinks they were made by the devil himself. She hates orange and she hates the pattern on the pants, and she hates them as a whole because she believes they are ugly and inappropriate to wear. She also says I should get some proper pants to wear. Also, some of her friends trash talk the pants, as do my only male friends who care about fashion. Now, I do admit I have zero fashion sense, but I believe the pants do not look that awful for shopping in a supermarket or walking the dog. I also believe I'm not there to impress anyone and just want to feel good. I would like her to wear what I wear, but I do not want to dress well, so I am dressed for others, if that makes sense. I've offered to buy the same type of pants in a different color, but she dislikes the pants as a whole. I do not own many pants and would like to buy a nicer, more formal pair, but they're hard to come by. Money is not a problem, I think. Obviously, this is not a my husband didn't come to his own birth and I got mad type of post. None of us are jerks. We just are tired of talking about it and want to know who's in the right and who's in the wrong. So the girlfriend obviously really doesn't like these pants. She doesn't necessarily say that she's embarrassed when he wears them out with her, but that could also be part of the problem too, if she hates them that much. The situation is a little tricky because if there are no other pants that this guy loves as much as these specific pants that his girlfriend hates, what do you do there? Somebody's always going to be the loser in this situation. It sounds like he tried making this better by getting them in a different color, but that didn't solve the problem. So it sounds like the pants have got to go, or if not, there's going to be some problems. But let me know who you think is in the right and who is in the wrong here down below. Am I the jerk for naming my dog Brad? I've always thought it was funny when dogs have human names. Much more amusing to me than giving them obvious dog names like Spike or Jellybean or whatever. I never had an issue with Brad's name being what it is until recently. My sister got a new boyfriend, and I'm sure you can see where this is going. I don't think I have to say his name. Well, my sister came over the other day with him, and we met for the first time. Everything was all fine and good until he asked what my dog's name was. I laughed a little and said that his name was also Brad. He looked at me for a second and asked if I was joking or not. I told him no. His name actually is Brad. After that, his whole mood flipped, and the remainder of the visit just had an uncomfortable vibe. A while after they left, my sister called me and started berating me for, quote, disrespecting her boyfriend. Honestly, this seems like such a Brad thing for him to do, and I don't think I did anything wrong here, but maybe I'm wrong. Should I have lied about Brad's name so I didn't risk hurting his feelings? This is a situation that Brad the human probably thinks is a lot more serious than it actually is. The dog was already named Brad before human Brad was even in the picture. Maybe he was thinking that the dog was named Brad because of him, but that wouldn't even make any sense, which is probably why he assumed it was a joke. I think for a lot of people this wouldn't bother them at all, but some people probably would be offended by a situation like this if they started dating someone and then the dog was named after them, but it's just a coincidence. But let me know how you see this down below, and jerk or not a jerk for naming the dog Brad. I was a vice principal at a school, but then was let go for no good reason other than for the school district to save some money. This is the story of how a former vice vice principal systematically broke down the system and got my ultimate revenge, giving the finger to this corrupted system and dismantling the entire process along the way. This story is broken into a few parts. The first two are to give some backstory, but part 3 is where the revenge begins. In the end, they all come groveling back to me, begging, but you'll see how that plays out. Here's how it all went down. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. This happened at the end of this school year. I posted what was going on in a teacher group and a bunch of people told me to post the whole thing. So this story is in 4 parts. Basically, I was told that all of the assistants / vice principals in the district, other than at the high school, were being let go, and a quote, teacher on assignment, a TOA, was going to take our jobs. I was not heartbroken over this, but was treated badly by the new admin team taking my job and my principal's job too. Also, I tried to help my staff on my way out, and it seems my bosses cared more about their images than my staff's happiness. So here's the story. Part 1. So none of the other admin in my district had received our contracts for the coming school year yet. I was wondering what was going on, but I heard rumors about a pay scale shift, and that was the reason for it. I found out Wednesday what is actually happening. Every assistant principal and vice principal in the district, why we have 2 different titles, I have no idea, is not getting renewed contracts, except for the ones at the high school. Their positions are being eliminated, and their jobs are being replaced with a new position that pays teacher a salary plus a $2,000 stipend. They are replacing the APs with learning coordinators. Apparently, the budget is the given reason, but I also heard rumors from someone at the district office. Each of us assistant principals and vice principals were scheduled to meet with one of the assistant supers on Wednesday. We thought it was about our contracts, and we were correct. When I arrived, the acting superintendent was there with the head of HR, Human Resources. I was told about the elimination of my position, but not the reasons why. I was then given an option for the coming school year. I could go back into the classroom, I could work in the district office, or I could apply and interview for the new positions that are replacing my job. What the heck? I wouldn't care one lick if I was told my position had been cut completely and that I needed to go back into the classroom. I love the classroom. I miss teaching full time. However, to tell me to apply and interview for a job I already have is nonsense. We were told to give the district our answers by Friday and they would draw up contracts or schedule interviews. Wednesday afternoon, I went to see Tony, who was an assistant superintendent and one of the few decent leaders in the school district. I heard from Tony that there was an internal shakeup, but he wasn't allowed to talk about it or even give me a hint about what happened. However, one of the assistant supers was being reassigned, aka demoted, to being principal of my current school. My principal was not coming back due to health reasons. The superintendent was, quote, released from his contract, and my school's new learning coordinator position had already been filled. Who filled it? A school counselor from one of the high schools who just happened to be a friend and a lackey of the assistant superintendent that is now the new principal. So, early this morning I gave them my answer. I decided that I didn't need until Friday to decide. I tried to make sure I sounded professional, but I made sure that my message was getting across by speaking with authority. I went into the acting superintendent's office and told him that I thought laying off a bunch of people so they could hire others to do the same job but at less pay was total BS. I told him that the way the school district handled certain situations was idiotic. I then gave several examples. I next told him that he was going to ruin a perfectly good school with an amazing team of educators by putting a lazy, mean, parents-pleasing person as its new principal and letting her put a lackey in as her second in command. I said that she was as useless as a screen door on a submarine and as mean as Dolores Umbridge. I finished the 3-minute speech by stating that I will work my butt off to finish the school year strong. I will prep for the next school year so that the teachers have an easier time. I also let him know that I would never work at or recommend the district to anyone ever again. Then I left letting him know that I expect an amazing letter of recommendation by the end of the school day Friday afternoon since I earned it for my service the past few years. So what am I going to do now? I called up an old friend on Wednesday who is currently a principal at a STEAM charter school, which stands for Science, Technology, Reading, Engineering, Arts, and Mathematics. And this school is a part of a chain of charter STEAM schools, and asked if he had a teaching position available. He's been asking me every year for the past 5 years to come work for him. He told me he had 3 openings and I could have my pick of them. So next year I will be, drumroll please, a 6th grade teacher, and I am very happy about it. it. I even get to design my own curriculum as long as it meets state standards. I could apply elsewhere for admin positions, but I think I need a break from school leadership. I need to love my work again like I used to as a teacher. Yes, there were many challenges, and sometimes I hated going to work, but I do love being a teacher. I feel bad for my current staff because the regime change will hit them hard, but there's nothing I can do about it. I wish I could help them. The most I could do would be to take a teaching position in my current school, but then I would be miserable with them and be helpless to do anything to aid them. So, for myself and my daughter, who I love more than anything, I am making the move to a new school and going back to what I enjoy doing, teaching. I'm even bringing my daughter to my new school to start next year as a 5th grader. I asked her if she wanted to stay at her current school or go to the STEAM school with me, and she wants to go with me. She was excited since she has visited there several times and loves the technology room, the robotics class, and the science labs. Plus, she is friends with some of the kids there already. As a goodbye to my staff, I am going out this weekend and I'm going to buy some nice letter paper and scratcher tickets. I am going to write short, individualized goodbyes to each of my staff members, and at the end I will include the following words. I'm giving you some scratcher tickets. My hope is that you are as lucky scratching them as I have been lucky to have worked with you. I have to finish my contract, but at the end of June I am free. I'm looking forward to teaching full-time again and having a boss who will let me do my job and not interfere. I don't think I want to work in administration again. Part 2, the revenge. So I put together goodbye gifts for all my staff and I'll be handing them out Friday, their last day with kids. They have a bunch of goodies that I posted about before. I thought this weekend about how to give the finger one more time to the district office and help my teachers out, even in a small way. So I came up with it on Sunday night, the revenge. My district requires each teacher to attend additional training throughout the year. These are outside of the regular staff development trainings. They are run by district staff, SPED teachers, and admin. The training normally lasts 1 to 3 hours and the teacher gets a certificate for the time spent in the training. Each teacher is required to attend 24 hours of these before the end of the school year. Most teachers take them over the summer if they are offered, so they don't have to take them during the school year. So, yesterday morning, before work, I was making copies of the certificates for all the courses I have run in the past years: classroom management strategies, lockdown procedures, social studies strategies, math strategies, reading comprehension, and environmental print. I am going to fill them out with each of the teacher's name and the number of hours. I am adding all the times I ever spoke to the staff about these topics and putting down hours to correspond, rounding up to the nearest hour-ish. And wouldn't you know, each of these topics was 3 to 5 hours in length. Each staff member will have exactly 24 hours worth of training. I filled out all of the dates of the training for the 2022 and 2023 school year. Oh, and I have an attendance sheet with all of their names and have them marked as being present. I check with the district since I am still an administrator into the summer. I am allowed to run these trainings over the summer before I leave. Now, they can have their summer to themselves and not worry about taking classes during the school year. They can if they wish, but 99% of teachers here hate the mandatory training hours. I hope the staff likes the present. Part 3. Since Friday, I am no longer a school administrator. I technically have another week to work, but I took a vacation during that time because, well, screw them. Now I spent the last week packing up, giving aid and comfort to my now former staff, and causing problems for the new administrators who are total jerks. Now, besides giving the entire staff a free year from additional PDs, I wasn't planning on causing any more problems, just quietly leaving and driving off into the sunset, Shane style. But no, apparently I don't deserve a quiet week. The new principal demoted from assistant superintendent and her new teacher on assignment, TOA, decided for some reason to be rude to me. There was only one response to that. I aimed to misbehave. How were they rude, you ask? First off, they ordered me to hurry and clean out my office. Apparently, the TOA, teacher on assignment, wanted to start redecorating my office. I was literally told, quote,
"Get all your personal stuff out of here ASAP. She wants her office now."
I was bullied by my evil teacher who repeatedly put me down and made fun of me because I am stupid and I can't understand everything as fast as everyone else. So I decided to record all of the hurtful things she said to me and present them to the administrator of my school. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. Here's the backstory. I was a senior in high school at the time and I had never been the brightest student. I was a solid C student and I had never received a detention or had any kind of bad student record. This is important because to this day I still have no idea idea why the teacher treated me this way. The teacher, who we will name Mrs. Frank, had been a teacher at my school for more than a decade and was widely known for being a pretty heartless bee who the administrator saw as the golden child. Mrs. Frank taught algebra, which is my worst subject, so naturally I had issues understanding the lessons and would ask questions frequently. To some, these questions are easily answered, but to me, it was rocket science. Usually, when somebody asks a dumb question, no one should address it. However, in Mrs. Frank's class, she would belittle me in front of everyone by saying things such as,
"And here comes the slow boy again. Wow, surprise, surprise, you don't understand it again. Really? We're gonna go extra slow for you today, aren't we?"
etc., etc. I tried going to the administration about it before, but she was considered the golden child. They would send someone in to examine her during class. She would act respectful and normal for one day and then go back to being a bee the next. This goes on for about half a year until I had enough. I went to the local Radio Shack, bought a recorder, and secretly recorded every insult she would throw at me. I would sometimes instigate to make up for the lost time. Go ahead, feed the fire. Fast forward to the end of the year and I'm sitting in Mrs. Frank's class when I ask a question. Her response was, and I quote, because it's burned into my brain,
"I've been teaching here for 10 years, and that was the single dumbest question I've ever heard come from anyone's mouth."
She continued the lesson without answering. I calmly stood up, packed my stuff, and headed to the nurse's office to dismiss myself from school. We were allowed to dismiss ourselves if we were 18. I went home, I compiled all of the brutal tapes into one glorious masterpiece, and headed back the next day to show the administrators. I sat down with the principal and we listened to a couple of the insults before he stopped me. He wanted more witnesses present, as well as Mrs. Frank. He told me he would meet the next day where I could show him and the rest of the administrators the full tape. I walk into school the next morning being the most nervous I've ever been for anything. I was called down to the office where I met with some board directors, the local school police officer, the principal, the vice principal, and Mrs. Franks. What followed were some of the greatest minutes of my entire life. I watched as the administrators went from fed up with being in another useless meeting to furious and speechless, with some of them keeping their mouths open for the entire duration of the tape. I also watched Mrs. Frank go from confident and stuck up to realizing that she had messed up beyond repair. She was publicly roasting herself in front of the most important people from the district. The tape ended, and without hesitation, the administrators looked around, and in astonishment, the principal turns to me and says, "I think we've heard everything we need to. Thank you." And I was quietly dismissed from the room. The final time I saw Mrs. Frank was leaving the room. I looked back and we made eye contact through her tear-filled eyes as I gave her the biggest, most evil smile. I returned to class the next week, and Mrs. Frank was nowhere to be found. The story spread quickly throughout the school, and I was seen as a saint. I had successfully gotten her fired and made it almost impossible for Mrs. Frank to return to her teaching career, as well as cut off most of her connections that she had with other teachers in the school. I had ruined her financially because no school district in the area would hire this walking piece of garbage. If you're reading this, Mrs. Frank, I'd like to take this moment to tell you to go bork yourself. Before you decide whether or not I'm the jerk, here's a little more information. I should have cleared this up in the story, however, I didn't want to go into too much detail about the process. Yes, this was perfectly legal to do, and my parents and I did our research to make sure we weren't breaking any kind of laws. In my state, you can record someone in their place of business without both party consent. And I want to address some frequently asked questions. I regret sharing the dumbed down version of this story because I left out a huge amount of stuff that I put my parents through during all of this. Tons of meetings and phone calls that would have made the story a lot longer, and I didn't think anyone would enjoy it. Number one, I do not still have the tapes. It was in the administration's best interest to keep them in case she sued for false termination, and it would have gone out of hand if the tapes spread and gave a bad reputation towards the district. Even if I had kept the tapes, this took place over 15 years ago, there is no way I would be able to find them. Number two, yes, I took algebra as a senior because again, I wasn't the greatest student to walk those halls, and throughout all my years of school, I had tutoring. I'm sorry I'm not a genius. And lastly, number three, I don't remember what question I asked that pushed me over the limit that day. So now that you know everything, was I the jerk? I know that teachers have an incredibly difficult job, especially year after year having to deal with the same problems in students that are solved one year and then they have to start all over again. And there are things like that with a lot of jobs. I mean, you can look at doctors and say the same thing. A doctor has a patient that comes in, he cures the patient, but then there's more people that have the same issue that come in later. For some people, that type of cycle calluses them in general towards the people that they're supposed to be helping. And it sounds like that might be exactly what's going on here with this teacher. Maybe once upon a time time she was a really sweet lady and was always helping and she really cared, and then she became this way, or maybe she was like this all along. It's just hard to imagine her lasting this long in the school district if she was like that the whole time. This story is relatable to a lot of people because a lot of you have probably had a really terrible experience with a teacher, where the teacher puts you down or tries to make you feel like you're stupid. The difference here is that this guy struck back, going to great lengths to shut her down permanently. He collected all the evidence he needed and presented it to her superiors, and so now she's out of a career. I know a lot of people are saying that that's way too far, that this is way beyond what he experienced himself, but it sort of depends on how you look at it, because it's probably not only the original poster here that had to deal with this type of strange cruelty that the teacher is raining down on him. It's probably also concurrently happening to a lot of other students, both in the present and in past years, that never said anything. So how do you see this? Do you think this was going way too far to totally ruin her career? Or do you think this was justified? Let me know your thoughts down below, and if you've ever had a mean teacher in your life, let me know what happened down below, along with jerk or not a jerk and why. Am I the jerk for throwing away my boyfriend's illegal yogurt collection? I'm a 29-year-old female, my boyfriend is 30. We've been living together for 2 years in a little studio in a very expensive big US city. My boyfriend grew up rurally with a lot of space, enough to collect all kinds of things. He collected action figures and video games and all the normal kid stuff when he was young, but as he grew older, he became interested in more unusual things. As a teen, he had 8 guinea pigs of different types from different breeders. Since Tide Pods were released 7 years ago, he saved one of every kind of Tide Pod. He's got a big box of international variety of electric insulators, those little ceramic hats that power lines wrap around on power poles. He's not a hoarder, he's usually neat, just used to having lots of space for his bizarro collections. At his parents' ranch, he has 2 big rooms full of containers of weird and impressive things. He recently became interested in yogurt. He has always hated dairy products until about a year ago. He just started drinking milk and sharing ice cream with me, but he's found a love for yogurts, so now he collects them, of course. The problem is that they're perishable. So until earlier, our little 550 square foot studio contained about 2,100 cups of yogurt. It comes in tons of varieties, different types, flavors, textures, containers, made by different companies in different countries. This is like crack to my boyfriend. So he pretty much tried to save a sample of everything he could find. He filled our fridge, bought a new fridge, and then another tiny beside the fridge, and then another tiny bedside fridge. He said that he didn't want to walk to the fridge at night, but it was obviously a ruse to get more yogurt space. These fridges all filled up with his yogurts, and if you keep them for long, they smell bad. Sometimes the packaging breaks, so our apartment was smelling like rotten milk for at least 2 weeks. And my boyfriend's attitude was, "Oh, it's fine, and just deal with it for a little longer," until I pulled the plug and I threw them all out this morning. I was looking at my groceries, which I had to put beside the fridge because there was no space, and everything smelled like death. And then I kind of snapped and I threw it all away. My boyfriend is understandably upset. We've been arguing about whether I crossed the line by throwing away his stuff, and he's especially upset because he, of course, had rare yogurts that were hard to find. In particular because he had some Cuban and Iranian yogurts that you can't get in the United States. But I know that we have trade sanctions against Iran and Cuba, so I don't know if it was even legal for him to have them. I asked him where he got his Iranian yogurt, but he kept insisting the Iranian yogurt is not the issue here, and that the real issue was me throwing out his precious yogurts without his permission. So am I the jerk here? So how do you collect yogurts? Because even if you have 3 fridges like the boyfriend had in this story, yogurts don't last forever even if you refrigerate them. Is he actually eating these, or is he just looking at them and admiring them? Anything that can perish like that doesn't really make sense to start building a collection around. But the part of this that seems like it's the most off is the fact that he didn't mind the horrible smell of all the rotting yogurts all over the place. The OP here says that he's not a hoarder, that he's neat, but yet the smell of all of this didn't bother him at all. Despite all of that, I get why he would be upset, and the OP definitely should have talked to him about it since this was his personal property, even though they do live together. But it seems like something more is going on here. 550 square feet is not very much space to fit 3 fridges, 2 of them being full-size fridges and 1 being a bedside fridge. So if your boyfriend or girlfriend was collecting this quantity of yogurt to the point where it stunk every time you went into your place, how would you handle it, and jerk or not a jerk, and why? Am I the jerk for not balding? My dad is bald and 5 of my 6 brothers are bald, and my last brother is on his way. My uncle is balding, and apparently my grandfather fathers on both sides have no hair too. I'm 34 years old, past the age any of them had lost their hair, and I still have my hair. Apparently, being bald is some bizarre cult identity for all of the guys in my family now, and every time there is a family gathering, there is huge drama. I've been told to shave it, and I've been accused by my brothers of getting a secret hair transplant and using anti-baldness medication, etc. My dad won't speak to me right now because over Christmas, he kept joking that I wasn't actually his child and mentioning that I should go check with a doctor to check if everything is okay. I did get very angry and I told him it was ridiculous and being bald shouldn't be a part of their identities. I am very happy and proud of my hair, and the whole thing just feels ridiculous and smells of jealousy to me. They think that I am a jerk for the crime of having hair and for not laughing along, but the jokes barely conceal some real contempt, and I've had enough of it. Am I the jerk? This is truly bizarre. Maybe the family seems to think that these jokes are actually in some sort of lighthearted spirit, and the OP is interpreting them as being mean-spirited, but even that seems like a stretch because of the facts that were presented here. The OP specifically says my dad won't speak to me right now because over Christmas he kept joking about the whole doctor thing. So it's not that the OP won't speak to his dad because he was upset about these jokes, it's that the dad was upset because of what? That he has hair, or that he didn't go to the doctor to actually get checked out? Because if that's the case, then it wasn't a joke at all. He's being pretty serious about it. The whole thing seems insufferable. But if this was your bald family and you were the only one that wasn't bald, and this is how they were treating you, what would you do? And let me know, jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for leaving my boyfriend because of Danny DeVito? I'm a 31-year-old female, and my boyfriend, who's 33, really likes Danny DeVito. We've been together for 6 years now, and he has always liked Danny DeVito. Even when we first got together, he had a cardboard cutout of him he got a few years before we even got together. It never even bothered me until we started working from home because of COVID. And honestly, it didn't even bother me. It bothered one of his colleagues. He has a well-paid job and is thought of very highly in his workplace and has been told by his boss that when he retires next year, he will be recommending him for the job. He has been there for 12 years and this will really be a huge advancement for him and he deserves it. Now for the strange part. Due to him working from home, he has been doing a lot more video calls and his boss's boss, Jay, really does not like the Danny DeVito cardboard cutout. He asked him to remove it during a meeting, so he did and the meeting carried on. The week after that, in another meeting, it was back in its usual spot. After that meeting, Jay asked my husband to hang on and blew up at him over the cardboard cutout being back. He snapped back that he is unable to tell him how to decorate his house. Unless he formally puts it in writing, he won't be removing Danny DeVito. So, would I be the jerk for leaving my boyfriend because of Danny DeVito? It's hard to imagine why the boss would care so much that there's a Danny DeVito cardboard cutout in the background. From the sounds of it, these meetings are just internal business meetings, not the forward-facing presentation to their clients or something. But even if it's hard to imagine a cardboard cutout of a guy being that distracting, if somebody comes to you sincerely and says, hey, this is hard for me to focus because of this thing, and they ask you to just move it out of the frame, that's one thing because the boyfriend did do that during the first meeting. But what fractured this whole situation is when during the second meeting, the boss just blew up on him, demanding that he do what he says about the Danny DeVito cardboard cutout. Both sides have some degree of a valid point, but the odd part here is that it seems like the OP, the girlfriend here, only sees it from the boss's side, not really considering that decorating his own home is his right, just like it's the right of the business to choose who they want to employ. So how do you see this? Who's in the right, who's in the wrong, and jerk or not a jerk, and why? Am I the jerk for refusing kids at adult breakfast? Every year for over a decade, my siblings, a 43-year-old sister, a 40-year-old brother, and a 33-year-old brother, and I'm 43, have breakfast on Christmas morning. They have always been hosted at my home, no kids, or my sister's home, 2 children, more adults. Every year, as we are organizing the breakfast in the days and weeks leading up to the holiday, we are reminded by the respective host that it is siblings and spouses only, neither children nor parents. Every year, my youngest brother, who has 2 children, an 11-year-old boy and an 8-year-old girl, and his wife either ignore the rules or get upset about the rule and don't show up. This year, when advising of the location more than a week before, I reminded my brother of the rule. He acted as if he'd never heard of such a request. I do understand that finding a babysitter during the holidays can be tough. I suggested he ask our mother or his mother-in-law or anyone else if they could watch the kids for a couple of hours if they aren't busy. On Christmas Eve, I asked his wife if they were coming. She said they were, along with my mom and sister and adult nephew. nephew, who's 18. With much of the other family present, including sister-in-law, we had a laugh about how my grandmother did the same with her siblings, not allowing kids, and how my niece and nephew were also excluded from ours. My mother mentioned that she had wanted to carry on the tradition, but her siblings didn't care to. My nephew was very accepting of the tradition, both as a minor and still as an adult. Last night on Christmas Eve, my brother texted me and said that if they could not bring the kids, they could not come. Our mother will be out of town with her husband's family for the morning, so I again suggested he ask his mother-in-law as she lives nearby, and they are going directly there just 2 hours after our breakfast start time. He has still not replied, and breakfast starts in 45 minutes. My other siblings and I are saddened that he might not attend, but agree that our brother should respect the fact that this is the one time per year when it's just us. So, am I the jerk for refusing kids at the adult breakfast? This just sounds like bad timing. I definitely get having a time where you want to spend time with your siblings without any kids there, but why does it have to be on Christmas morning? That's the hardest time possible to find somebody to temporarily babysit your kids, even if it's your own family. And more importantly, most parents would want to spend Christmas morning with their kids specifically. In some families, that's the time when the kids open up their presents and get to run around and be excited. So this whole thing seems like it would work a lot better if it was the day after Christmas or sometime around it that wasn't on Christmas itself. So who do you think is in the right here? Let me know down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for ruining Thanksgiving? I'm a 30-year-old female and I met my boyfriend who's 30 3 years ago. Before me, he was together with his high school sweetheart. They fell out of love and broke up. A year later, we started dating. His mom, however, was still heartbroken about it, and I was very understanding and thought that she needed time to get to know me. The ex basically grew up with them and they saw her as a part of the family. For the first year of my relationship, his mom would call me the ex's name until my boyfriend got angry once and told her to be nice. She laughed it off and said it was just a habit. After that, she started calling me the wrong name, Janet instead of Jenny, fictional names for the story. I corrected her a couple of times, but she seemed to like hurting me, so I ignored it later. My boyfriend has 2 sisters, and a couple of weeks ago before Thanksgiving, we were invited to a barbecue at the older sister's house. I was in the kitchen with my boyfriend's mom, the sisters, and one of their husbands. The older sister then talked about how my boyfriend praised my cooking to her husband, and the mom was listening. She then said out loud,
Sure, why don't we let Janet make the turkey this year?
The sisters giggled and looked at each other, and I said, that's a great idea. I didn't tell my boyfriend what happened. On Thanksgiving, we went to his mom's house with the usual wine and dessert. She was shocked. Everybody was shocked. And I said, what? I thought Janet is bringing the turkey. There was yelling, crying, and then we got kicked out. My boyfriend is so angry with me, he hasn't talked to me since. I think it's over, to be honest, but I still don't think I did anything wrong. Did I? Am I the jerk? This was some pretty perfectly executed karmic revenge. The mom had probably gotten so used to purposely saying her name wrong that she didn't even think that this was very well played. The downside to this is that the collateral damage is the whole rest of the family who probably weren't being jerks to the OP here, but they don't have turkey on Thanksgiving, which they probably were looking forward to. So was the damage done worth the heroic karmic justice here? That's the question. Let me know what you think down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. A group of entitled customers completely humiliates a waiter and makes her cry. So our entire restaurant staff gets a brutal revenge on them and creates a disgusting special meal to serve them since they made us open when we were closing. Here's how it happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. Here's some backstory. In the country where I live, the people here are not native English speakers, although 85 to 90% of people can understand English, and less than that can converse in fluent English. This plays a part later on. This was around 2010 when the call centers were being outsourced to other countries. No, I am not from India. Many wanted to get employed by these call centers as they pay 2 to 4 times more than the pay of regular workers. However, only a select few get hired, as one of the requirements is you must be fluent in English. So those that get hired sometimes act entitled, stuck up, and privileged, though not everyone. I was working at a small pizzeria at this time after graduating culinary school when this happened. So the people involved were the entitled customer, the waitstaff, and me. I was the head chef. It was about 5 minutes until our closing time and was getting so slow that the waitstaff asked my permission if we can start closing and cleaning up early. And I nodded to agree and proceeded to the kitchen. I asked my crew to turn off and clean the ovens and pack up. About 15 minutes into this, I heard some yelling outside and some crying. I peeked from the kitchen and saw that our waitstaff was being harassed by a group of 8 and crying. Naturally, I come over and talk to my waitstaff as to what happened. Apparently, the group arrived 5 minutes after closing and demanded to be served. They were working from a nearby call center, and they were berating my waitstaff after my waitstaff was telling them that we were closed. They spoke to her in English to show their superiority, I guess, and told her not to argue since she is just a waitress. And since they are paid more and can speak English, they should be served properly. Keep in mind that my waitstaff can understand English, but just can't converse in it fluently. I, however, can, so I turned to the group and asked, what happened here? The entitled customer said,
"Your waitress is stupid and should be fired. We want to order and she told us you're closed."
But we are closed.
"No, that's not right. That's not the right customer service you should be giving. The customer is always right, and we want to order, so you should take it. We can buy anything we want, and you should just comply."
At this time, I was getting annoyed, so I took their order, signaled my kitchen staff to refire up the ovens. This really annoyed them as I just finished cleaning them and make the pizza. I then went to my waitstaff and comforted her until she calmed down, and then went to the kitchen to check on the pizza. What I didn't know was that my waitstaff heard the commotion and enacted a revenge plan. One of the staff opened the grease trap. It was a small box below the kitchen sink, which traps all of the gunk and grease before it gets into the sewers. They got a handful of this nasty gunk and smeared it on top of the pizza dough. Then the staff took turns snotting and spitting on the dough, and some even pulled their private hair and spread it on top. Then they covered it all with tomato sauce, cheese, and put the toppings across the entire pizza and cooked it to perfection. I asked one of the kitchen staff to serve it as my waitstaff was still crying from the experience. Boy, did we watch them eat it. We watched them having fun eating the pizza, and we were watching them with delight as well. So don't be mean to the restaurant staff, as you never know what happens in the kitchen. Were we the jerks for our revenge? This revenge was pretty disgusting. I always wonder how often stuff like this actually happens. And for those of you that have worked inside of a restaurant, do you actually see people messing with customers' food often, or is that a rare thing? In this case, I think because they were all on the same page, everyone was upset with these people because they had already turned off the oven and had made the waitstaff cry. There was nothing stopping them, no checks and balances to make sure that this food didn't get totally messed with. But hopefully in a normal scenario, this doesn't happen all the time for no reason. Either way, don't be mean to people that are handling your food, but not because they're gonna mess with your food, but because why? There's no reason to be like that, and the people in this story that were coming from the call center obviously had a crazy inflated sense of ego to think that they could act like this to anyone, let alone people that were making their food. Let me know how you would handle the situation down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. My landlord, a slumlord, tried to illegally evict me and strong-arm me and my husband to get out of his house. So I get revenge by exposing all of his dirty laundry and cost him everything, including losing his own properties. Here's what happened. This happened back in 2010 when I lived in Winter Garden, Florida with my husband and his dying uncle. So the background is my husband and I moved in with his sick uncle after losing so much during the 2008 housing market crash in the United States, like many of my husband's law maintenance customers. We also moved in with his uncle into a condo because his uncle has stage 4 cirrhosis of the liver, and his self-entitled sister and her family refused to help take care of him. My husband, a retired county sheriff officer, which is important later, and I got ourselves set up in the condo's 2 bedrooms as his uncle had himself set up in the living room, including his bed. On the first day, we found dangerous black mold caused by a leaky dishwasher. On the second day, we found the master shower had loose tiles and a leaky shower head. On the third day, we found a nest of brown recluse spiders in the living room. We talked with his uncle about these problems and found out that the slumlord, friends with the self-entitled sister/aunt and her family, was refusing to take care of the issues as required by law. We wanted to start legal actions then, but my husband's uncle talked us out of it several times. The slumlord was nice to us as long as my husband's sick uncle was alive. The very next day after my husband's uncle died was a completely different story. The slumlord had turned nasty, aggressive, and began to try and strong-arm evict us like we were nothing more than drug addict squatters. The slumlord even tried to aggressively fight my husband when we dropped off our next rent check. He kept telling us that we had to move out or else, but yet refused to actually follow Florida laws to evict us. The slumlord and his corrupt Winter Garden Police Department code enforcement officer's wife even recruited my husband's self-entitled aunt and uncle to start harassing us about just moving even if we want to live in a tent.
"And my nephew just moved so they can rent the condo to another senior."
Husband said, "We don't have anywhere else to go yet, and he must go through the eviction laws or get into very serious trouble. Self-entitled aunt said,
"You're nothing but trouble. A retired SCSD officer, nephew. You've been problem since the day you were born. Get out of their condo and stop being a problem for everyone. Who cares if you have to live in a tent?"
All of this made my retired SCSD officer husband, who specialized in uncovering corrupted law enforcement, very suspicious. We talked and began investigating the slumlord and the corrupt code enforcement wife. My first order was to place all of the rent into escrow with evidence of repairs that have been neglected. Second, I sent a notification of cease and desist harassment to the slumlord and self-entitled aunt. Next, I researched public property tax records. Woohoo! Pay dirt there. Slumlord's condo wasn't registered as a rental property with the state of Florida, and thus was paying far less in property tax than the slumlord should have been paying. Property tax records also show that the slumlord did not own the condo. It was still deeded to his mother, which I found out had been living in a retirement home for 5 years before my husband's uncle moved in. My husband found out that the corrupt code enforcement wife had been inspecting and signing off on hers and her slumlord's properties, including the condo, which is against Florida code enforcement conduct laws. I found out from neighbors in the condo that the slumlord had only been renting to seniors with severe health issues. My best discovery, though, next to tax evasion, was finding out that the Condo Owners Association had a very strict no renting/leasing policy, meaning you or your family had to live in the condo and it couldn't be rented. The revenge. Now that we had all of our evidence, my husband and I began to knock down all the slumlord's dominoes. My husband went and filed a complaint with the Winter Garden Police Department about the corrupt code enforcement's wife and her perjuring inspections on her family properties. My husband has a glowing record in the county with the FDLE for having over 200 clean arrests and taking down nearly 60 corrupt public officials, including protective services in the early 2000s. This background helped push WGPD, the police department, to open an investigation into the corrupt code enforcement wife. They discovered that not only had she perjured inspections on her family's properties, but also on my husband's self-entitled aunt and uncle's properties as well. This got corrupt code enforcement wife fired, stripped of her state enforcement officer's license, and convicted of multiple crimes. I sent all property tax fraud evidence to the Florida Property Tax Division. That got the state to investigate the slumlord. The state found out that not only did he commit property tax fraud on the condo, but also on a property that he was renting to his son and his self-entitled aunt's son, along with business tax fraud and income tax fraud. Both slumlord's son and self-entitled aunt's son were also busted for possession of illegal narcotics with the intent to sell when investigators came to the rental house that they lived in. I never expected that much fraud to be found from all of this, but I'm glad it happened. The business tax fraud of the slumlord affected the self-entitled aunt and self-entitled uncle as well, since they were his business partners. The self-entitled uncle came under investigation by the USPS board because he was the postmaster of Winter Garden. USPS, of course, being the United States Postal Service. The self-entitled uncle also lost his comfy job and pension after it was discovered that he was assisting the slumlord in the tax fraud scam for stealing money orders. All four were convicted of multiple white-collar crimes, had to sell their properties, most of their stuff, serve some form of time, and pay huge amounts of fines and restitution. The slumlord, his wife, the husband's self-entitled aunt, and my husband's self-entitled uncle, along with their sons, all went down for multiple crimes, both felonies and misdemeanors, all because they thought that they could strong-arm evict us. It just proves how smart we, the tenants, can really be when pushed. It also proves why everyone should know all the rental laws and how to research public records, because it can save you in the end. So, am I the jerk for going after the slumlord because he tried to strong-arm evict us? If you move into a new place and on the first day you find black mold because of the leaky dishwasher, and then by the time you're on the third day you find a nest of brown recluse spiders in the living room, you should probably leave if you can. Obviously, in this case, that wasn't an option, but black mold is obviously not good for the human body, and if you get bit by a black recluse spider, the venom can cause necrosis where all the tissue around the bite dies, so it can be pretty serious. Anyway, this revenge was pretty thorough. They basically went through all the laws in their area and just hit him from all angles. The fact that he was doing tax evasion on top of everything definitely is not going to help his case in the future. And not only did they lose the properties, but the uncle also lost a job and pension because he was involved in the whole tax fraud scam as well. So it really was a concentrated, thorough revenge by someone who was pushed too far. Let me know what you would do if this was your landlord, and if you've ever been in a situation like this before, let me know it down below too. But most importantly, jerk or not a jerk, and why? Am I the jerk for not packing my husband's bags so he could go spend Christmas with his family without me? I'm a 30-year-old female and I've been with my husband Ted, who's 34, for 4 years. We got married 2 years ago. His family and I haven't really gotten along too well. They're rich and they're all about image. I only see them on occasions, but that's when the drama is at its highest rate. Last Christmas, Ted and I traveled to spend Christmas with them, and it was awkward for some reason. After we went back to the hotel, his mom sent me a list of all the things I've done wrong at her house, like bringing the wrong type of desserts and wearing, quotes, inappropriate clothes. I wore a blouse and leather jacket, and not standing up when guests arrive. This year, my mother-in-law only sent an invitation to Ted to spend Christmas with the family. He told me that his mom didn't invite me because of last year's negative points and would rather just have him there this year. I was flabbergasted, and I asked if he was actually considering going after his mom excluded me, and he shrugged and said yes, because he never spent Christmas away from family his entire life, and he isn't about to break the cycle now. He suggested I go out, invite Regina, my best friend, over, and plan my own celebration, and said, quotes, but nothing too crazy, capiche? I was upset, but hey, if they don't want me, then I shouldn't force it, and tried not to feel hurt and offended. Yesterday, Ted came home asking if his bags were ready since it was time to go. I said, I don't know, and he was stunned. He freaked out, saying I knew he was going to travel to his hometown and I should have packed his bags like I always do. I admit that packing his bags is what I do, but only when we're traveling together. And I figured since he was traveling on his own, he should pack them himself. He lost it, saying I just caused him to be late and ruined everything, the flight, the hotel, the other reservations and arrangements that he had, just because I was being bitter because I wasn't invited to Christmas celebration with his family. We had a heated argument and he said, look, you're really overreacting right now because it's not like I'm going away on a vacation to another country to spend time with some strippers and whatnot, though I'm pretty certain you wouldn't be half as pissed and agitated as you are now. I'm just gonna spend time with my family, and quite frankly, I don't know what is with you anymore. Then he proceeded to call me petty and say that I got him in trouble and punished him by not packing his bags for him, knowing that he was going to travel. He packed his bags in a rush and ended up forgetting most of the gifts that he got for his family. He is now not speaking to me. So am I the jerk? Maybe in some families, some cultures, some groups of people, that's normal to pack for somebody when you're not traveling with them, but I don't think I've ever known somebody who packs for somebody else on a trip that only one of them is going on. I mean, obviously with little kids that are being sent off, their parents will sometimes pack their bags, but I've never heard of this being the case, just non-verbally communicated and only assumed. There's a really brief edit where the OP actually updates and says that it's not just the mother-in-law, but father-in-law and Ted's brothers also figured it would be best that she doesn't attend their Christmas and instead go to her own family, so that way nobody has to deal with any tension. So whatever happened that previous year didn't only make a mark on the mother-in-law, but the father-in-law and Ted's brothers. I think I would be pretty shocked too if I found out that even though I thought I was behaving normally, everyone disliked me for this whole checklist of reasons like the mother-in-law sent to the OP here. But if you were in that situation, how would you handle it, and jerk or not a jerk, and why? Am I the jerk for telling my coworker I will cover up my shoulders when he starts wearing shoes? My workplace doesn't have a dress code, so everyone dresses very casually. Today I was wearing a tank top with thin straps and long pants and my shoulders were showing. One of my coworkers, Brian, was giving me angry looks all day long, and when I finally asked him what's wrong, he told me that he thought better of me than to dress in, quote, barely any clothes when coming to work. At that moment, Brian was wearing pretty short shorts and was barefoot. He dressed like this the whole summer. The office is carpeted and he only puts on his slippers if he's going to the bathroom or to the kitchen. I told Brian that I will start covering up my shoulders when he starts wearing shoes to the the office. If I have to look at his hairy toes at work, he can deal with the side of my shoulders. That, of course, didn't help. He put on his headphones and didn't even look in my direction for the rest of the workday. Now I'm wondering if I was wrong to say that. He is a coworker, and I should strive for good work relationships, but I felt insulted, so I kicked it back at him. Am I the jerk? What kind of office allows you to come to work and not wear shoes all day? Is this an actual thing in actual offices, or is this an office in a commune in the remote mountains? People get upset when people take off their shoes and they don't have socks on in an airplane, and that's only for a short amount of time. But this is all day, every day. And why does he care about her shoulders? I have so many questions here. Obviously, what she said about him not wearing shoes upset him, but what would you tell a guy who didn't wear shoes at work all day long that you needed to cover up your shoulders? Let me know down below on Jerk or Not a Jerk and why. Am I the jerk for calling the people that use Ring cameras in my neighborhood creepy? My parents and I moved to a new town from a city. I have started dating a girl for my soccer team, and I'm also a girl. I found out that my neighbors have cameras looking outside of their house to the street and mini park, where my mom said that one of the neighbors had sent a picture of me and my girlfriend in the park at 6 p.m., kind of pettily hinting that I should not be outside there at night. It felt so creepy that the neighbor did that, and it also felt weird that I know he never does that to my straight friends who hang out there, even much later. Even though my parents know I am a lesbian, many people's parents might not know or accept that, and he could get someone hurt. Anyway, a few days later, I was going to help my friend from school replace shifters on her bike. A different neighbor of mine sent a picture of me to my mom where I was coming down the street on a bicycle too big for me, commenting that this was not my bike, seeming to imply that I stole it. Anyways, I was starting to get really creeped out. I'm in this neighborhood watch Facebook group that most of the parents on the block are in, but I've never even posted there before. But this time, I took the pictures that my mom had got of me and I made a post saying this: "Hey neighbors, I am OP. I go to school and I'm a junior. I've been noticing a local safety concern I want to make you aware of. Several times in the last few weeks, I've been filmed on the street or in the public park by strangers. I am 16 and so was my partner, and we were very creeped out and uncomfortable to know that we were being recorded in a private romantic moment when we thought we were alone. Another time, someone took this picture when I was biking home alone in the evening. I know this sounds crazy, but I'm serious. See the pictures here. Please take care if you have younger children or even if you are going out alone as a woman." I didn't know what to expect, but it really blew up. Some parents saw it as creepy that someone was taking that kind of photo, but then the wife of the man who took a photo of my girlfriend and I commented. She was saying that her husband only took the photo because he wanted to check with my parents about me being out past dark. I said it was 6 p.m. and that I knew her husband wasn't taking pictures of the many straight couples I know, mentioning a few friends I checked with, and her husband was acting differently towards taking pictures of lesbians. She sent me an angry reply accusing me of calling her husband a pervert. Now this is where I may have messed up. I said, I'm not trying to call him a pervert, I'm trying to call him a bigot. She got mad enough to call my mom, who sent her to voicemail, but the post also blew up with arguments. A lot of people were saying stuff like it's not cool to take pictures of minors without their parents knowing. Some were defending the picture taking. So am I the jerk for posting that on Facebook? A lot of people that have Ring cameras only use them to film exactly what's in front of their house, so that way they can ward off from people trying to break in or people stealing their packages or whatever. And that's a different circumstance than having somebody point their camera at the public park or any other community property, because that is pretty weird. You should be able to be there without being surveilled the entire time. For the people that think that this isn't a big deal, what if the situation involved a public pool? If filming the park 24 hours a day is normal, would filming a pool that anyone can use in the community be normal too? I think that makes it even easier to see that that is weird. I mean, obviously, if it's your own pool, it's your own outdoor area, that's one thing, but this is not what happened in this situation. This kind of bleeds over into the whole area with having drones, where if you have a personal drone just floating above your house, surveilling everything, some people think that's sort of a gray area. Let me know where you are on this whole surveillance issue, and also, do you think the husband here was a bigot or not? And of course, jerk or not a jerk, and why? I found out my boyfriend has disgusting, exposed, revealing photos of his fully grown sister, and he still keeps them. But then I found out why, and I was horrified. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. My ex Jake and I broke up in September of 2021. He was a complete jerk, and I should have ended it much sooner than I did. He would gaslight me, he bled me dry financially, and near the end, he even tried to do the unspeakable act to me. I left a few weeks earlier and I can't even begin to describe how much I hate him for what he put me through. Roughly a year before we ended it, he was on 4chan. He is obsessed with the horrible side of the site, if that highlights what a creep he is, and someone posted a picture, a private picture of a woman, but in that photo, she was still partially covering herself. He immediately realized that it was his sister. Apparently, there is a game that they play on that site where the author will say, if the stamp on your comments is a certain number, I'll post the pictures. In this case, it was 711. Jake tried twice and he hit the number. The pics were then posted. 3 of them, fully private pics. He thinks that his sister, let's call her Jen, was dating someone in college, did a video stream, and the guy did a screen grab of it. He thinks that must have happened about 5 years prior to the pics being shared online. He also thinks that the guy in question around that time is Jen's current husband. He was the only one to his knowledge that she was dating. Jake thinks that he may have uploaded the pictures. Jen and her husband have had a very difficult marriage. She wants to be a stay-at-home mom and her husband works tirelessly to keep up with her demands. All of this, besides Jen's clearly troubled marriage, is just a theory. I have no context outside of his guesses. He saved the pictures to his phone and I was immediately freaked out. I told him to delete them, that it was bad enough that they had been uploaded to the internet and the post at that point had vanished, so it wouldn't be a simple task of reporting it. He refused. He said he may need the pictures at some point in the future. What? And I had no way of getting the pictures deleted myself, so I figured I would keep trying to convince him to do the right thing over time. At one point, I forgot about the photos while dealing with the rest of his nonsense, and he broke his phone screen. He needed help saving his data, so I let him upload everything to my Microsoft 365 drive that I never use, and then re-download everything back to his phone. Keep in mind, I had forgotten about the pictures. Some family background is needed now. Jake and Jen are the only 2 children. Their parents divorced when they were very young, but both stayed in their lives. Jake's mother divorced her very abusive father and decided to seek treatment for the trauma that he caused her. She lost custody of them to their father and spent the next 10 years working on herself, therapy, anxiety meds, everything. She was not this broken person before she met their father. I met her and I loved her so much. Compared to the stories that I was told about her neglecting her children, she was 100% not what I imagined. She wished that she could have been more involved in her children's lives. She saw them every weekend, but she knew that she couldn't mentally handle being there like they needed. She also works tirelessly to connect with them now as adults. Their father essentially spent those 10 years pitting them against each other, brother against sister, children against mother. Jake followed in his father's footsteps of being an abusive and manipulative person. Jen became obsessed with being daddy's perfect little white picket fence daughter and got married right out of college and immediately started pumping out grandkids. They both still treat their mother very poorly. Jen is also a terrible person in my opinion and treated me horribly during the few times we interacted. I love trying new things. I ride motorcycles and I am very much a social butterfly. Their extended family adored having me over and would insist on me being invited to family events. During those events, Jen never hesitated to try and make my pursuits of happiness, starting a business, building a home from the ground up, getting a dog, traveling, etc., look like childish and reckless pipe dreams, all while talking trash behind my back. Sidebar, after I broke up with Jake, I accomplished everything that I wanted. Take that, Jen. We were in no way friends. Now, Jake and Jen's father has far more debt than he has cash, but he does have a house. The father has already said that he would give the house to whoever had kids first. Classic. Which ended up being Jen, who is now on her 3rd child. She already has a house of her own, and so does Jake. Jake didn't really bring this up when Jen started having kids, but anytime his father brought up how the handover his home would go, Jake became oddly quiet. Flat out, a part of me thinks he wants to use the pictures to blackmail Jen into handing over the house after his father dies. And that brings us to the present day. I moved out and recently started receiving alerts from Microsoft 365, the look back on this moment kind of emails that just send picture flashbacks. At first, I didn't recognize the photos, and then it all came back to me that Jake had saved the forgotten pictures to my account and must have forgotten to clear his data after he used it. But that means now I have the pictures too. Now, like I said, I don't like Jen in the slightest, but I would never even dream of trying to use these pictures against her in any way, even though she treated me like trash. She may have been horrible, but I am not that kind of person. I don't think anyone should have these sort of pictures of another person without their their knowledge. But what do I do now? If I just told Jen, she would not believe me. A part of me doesn't care if she does, but a bigger part of me knows that I won't be able to shake this haunting feeling that my ex is just waiting to blackmail her, and if I don't have proof, he's going to destroy her family for something that she did when she was younger. I have no love for this woman, but that is pretty messed up. The other part of me wants to delete the photos, tell her, and let her decide whether she wants to believe me and pursue it, or ignore me entirely to her own peril. The last part of me says this isn't any of my business, and even if I'm trying to help, I could cause the exact same fallout as her brother by revealing what I do know, with or without proof. So what should I do? Tell Jen and share the proof? Tell Jen and delete the photos now and move on with my very happy life and just hope I forget about this over time like I did before? Please tell me what I should do. So because there was so much advice given, the OP actually responded to some of these, which gives insight into how she was thinking about the whole situation. So I'll include some of the comments to give a little bit of context to what the OP ends up saying. The top response was, do not tell her. She will flip it on you like you had something to do with it, and her scumbag brother will deny everything. Just delete everything off your computer and your accounts and be done with those people. The OP says, this is seriously what I'm leaning towards. I really don't want to get involved, but my closer friends are split. Some say that since I know, I should speak up. Others say forget about this and move on. All of them know him personally and have heard the horror stories about his family, but are split 50-50 on what I should do. The OP says that she thinks, well, what if he destroys her family and it crushes her mother? I would hate for her to be hurt by this, but I also think that if I tell her, it will result in the same thing. And lastly, there was a response that said, I get that you feel you have perhaps in your hands the ability to do some noble deed, but we're not talking about rectifying an unspeakable act or a murder here. We're just talking about some private pictures, and everyone on earth is that way at some point in the day, like when you take a shower. If it wasn't America, nobody would even be hung up about these silly pictures. Europeans will take pictures of the family at the beach, and there'll be 3 generations of people in various degrees of undress, and nobody thinks twice about it. This is not something for you to stick your neck out about. The OP's response here was, I had to sit on this for a minute. I really appreciate the perspective you are bringing. Personally, if someone shared my pictures, I could hardly care. I think she would certainly care though. Regardless of whether he reveals it or I do, I think it will result in the same fallout. If her husband was in fact the one that uploaded the pictures, she will be able to tell immediately, and it would tear the family apart either way. Despite my dislike for her, I do not want a hand in that if Jake's guesses are accurate. If his guesses aren't accurate, I'll just be setting myself up for harassment from him because I'm the only other person who knows. Either way, I will hurt myself if I tell her about the photos, and I think that I've been hurt enough by these people. I am going to delete the photos. So after that back and forth, there was actually an update. It didn't take long for someone to write what I needed to hear. Jake doesn't live far from me now, and if I were to tell Jen about the photos, his behavior is too unpredictable, so I could be putting my safety at risk if he chooses to retaliate. I also realized that if her husband was the person that posted the photos, me telling her would in no way prevent the family from having a massive fallout, and I don't want to have a hand in that. If he wasn't the one that posted the pics, I still risk exposing myself since I'm the only one that knows about them and my ex is a 4chan weirdo. So I'm going to delete the pictures and move on. They can play their games of manipulation, but I finally managed to break free and I am not going back. Am I the jerk for staying out of it? This situation is gross and bizarre. It doesn't seem like anyone thinks that this is as weird as I think it is. This guy has these pictures of his sister that he keeps. No matter what the reason is for keeping them, that is weird and gross, and will probably inevitably end his relationship with his sister if she figures this out, whether it be from the OP or by him trying to blackmail her like the OP seems to think that Jake is going to do. So if the original poster, the OP's theory here is correct, and Jake is keeping these pictures to blackmail the sister into giving him their dad's house, first of all, they're never going to speak again. He's going to permanently ruin his relationship, and I guess the original poster would probably say, well, the dad had already pitted them against each other, but this is way too far. This is extreme creepy territory. But why would that blackmail even work if it ends up being the 50% chance that these originated from her current husband, from Jen's current husband? It just doesn't logistically make sense. What would actually happen in that scenario is she would go, oh my god, husband, I can't believe you did this. But then he already knows that these pictures are out, so then Jake's plan falls apart because he no longer has leverage. The only way that maybe it would work is if these were photos for another guy and she didn't want her current husband to find out so bad that she would give away the dad's house. But no matter what happens, he's lost his relationship with her forever. And that's the OP's assumption that Jake is going to blackmail her. If he's not going to blackmail her, I don't even want to think about why he has these. You guys let me know what your theories are down below. Do you think that the OP should stay out of this or reveal everything to Jen, and jerk or not a jerk, and why? Am I the jerk for yelling at my mom that I hate Harry Potter and to let me live my own life? As the title suggests, my mom is a huge Harry Potter nut. She and my dad actually met in Harry Potter IRC. It's like Discord but for older people in the early 2000s, and got married and had kids, and from day one decided to embarrass us for life by naming us after Harry Potter and Star Wars characters. It's honestly been hell. I have a stupid name, and since we were little, my parents have forced stuff like Harry Potter, Star Wars, Marvel movies, etc., down our throats. Everything is about dragons and magic and blah 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 blah. I'm so sick of it. Every birthday, every holiday, everything is just organized around a fandom. So, like every Christmas, during the days leading up to Christmas, we have to sit down every night and watch the Harry Potter movies. It is so boring. I can usually get away with knitting or drawing on my iPad during this, but this year my mom was like, let's just have a technology and distraction-free night every night. I instead arranged to go over to my friend Missy's house for 2 nights. Missy's family is normal and likes things a normal amount. My mom got really mad and started talking about how it's a family tradition and how I'm basically rejecting her, and went on her whole thing about how you wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Harry Potter. I finally had it, and I just yelled, nobody cares that you were a big name in the Harry Potter fan club. I don't like Harry Potter. I don't like Star Wars. I hate Marvel movies. They're all so boring. Please just let me have my own interests. I couldn't help it. I just started crying because I was so frustrated that everything always has to be about Harry Potter this or Star Wars that, and now we're all older and they started doing this for Game of Thrones. Everything is centered around some kind of movie or TV show or book series. Just once, I want my family to band around something that doesn't have to do with media or these nerdy things. We live in Utah, where we have like 5 national parks, and even though I ask every year for my birthday, I have never even been to the Arches. Well, my sister called me saying that my mom was angry and to just come home and stop with the theatrics. I told her that I'm sick of having all this old nerd stuff crammed down my throat, and I just once want to have a normal time watching normal Christmas movies and not having to pause for lightsaber battles. Am I the jerk? If the OP's name is based on a Harry Potter character, some of them are kind of cool. She got Luna as a name. Hermione, on the other hand, might be too associated with Harry Potter to ever escape from it. They could have named her after the owl Hedwig, or just named her Dudley. But anyway, even though it seems like most kids would probably love to be in that environment, this obviously went way too far. If they have to rewatch every single Harry Potter movie every single year for their entire lives, that might end up getting a bit old, especially if these kids don't have an interest in Harry Potter or Star Wars or Marvel or whatever it is they're watching. It seems like the parents aren't hearing what the OP, the daughter here, is saying, but instead trying to diminish the whole thing because she got emotional, and because she got emotional, they're just disregarding it as theatrics, which is pretty much trying to invalidate what the daughter is trying to explain to them, that she wants to have her own identity, she doesn't like these things. And as hurtful as that might be for the parents to hear that, they gotta at least hear her. I mean, she obviously wants to go to these national parks and the parents don't seem interested in that, so maybe they can do that as a family too. So how would you handle a situation like this if you really didn't like whatever your parents' interests were and they were trying to make that your family's thing that you guys do together? Let me know down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for cleaning out the fridge without telling my husband? My husband brought home a metal box that he checks on often during the day when it's in the fridge. When asked about it, he said it contains some freshly picked olives his friend Jason got from his uncle's farm and wanted my husband to keep it until he gets back from his business trip. I had no problem with him keeping it safe at the bottom of the fridge. My husband always asked me to be cautious with the box and not open it, as it would be rude to touch other people's stuff. Yesterday, I decided to clean out the fridge, which took me about 2 hours, from unplugging the fridge, emptying all the items, groceries, vegetables, containers, and washing and cleaning out the inside of it, and then letting it settle before plugging it in again. I took the box my husband brought out of the fridge and placed it on the kitchen island alongside the other containers. While I was working, I received a video call via WhatsApp from my husband while at work, feeling bored, asking what I was doing. I showed him I was cleaning out the fridge and he freaked out. He started asking about the metal box. I was confused, so I told him to calm down and showed him where the box was. He got mad, telling me I shouldn't have cleaned out the fridge nor even touched the box without telling him. I again tried to ask him to calm down as I saw no big deal with it. His precious box was safe and sound, but he went on a rant about how the box needed to be put back inside the fridge ASAP, and he told me to plug the fridge in right then and there, but I couldn't because it was wet, and I still wasn't finished with cleaning the other parts of the fridge. Apparently, I pissed him off by stalling and he hung up, and 30 minutes later he came home and pitched a hissy fit, saying I should have picked a time where he was home to clean out the fridge so that he could take the box somewhere else to keep it cool. I said, so what? It was sitting out of the fridge for barely 2 hours, and olives can stand being outside of the fridge for a much longer period. He said, I don't get it, and took the box to leave with it. I asked where he was taking it, and he said he needed to get back to work and he had no time to explain. I shrugged this whole thing off, but he came back with it in the evening and put it in the fridge and then complained about me cleaning the fridge without telling him and acting dismissive of his opinions. I argued what opinions could he have on cleaning out the fridge. He argued back saying that he promised Jason he'd keep his olives in good condition and that I should have just told him. End of story. I do wonder if I messed up. He usually doesn't get that mad unless I've messed up, and I think I have. For a little more context, yes, I am aware that my husband is acting overprotective of this box, but he always acts like that whenever somebody asks him to keep an item safe for them, like furniture or car parts. And second of all, no, I haven't seen those olives myself and haven't opened the box because I didn't think I would even have to. But my husband tends to be overprotective of his friends' belongings, so I didn't give him much thought. So am I the jerk for cleaning out the fridge without telling my husband and moving this metal box that he's watching over on the kitchen island? This sounds like the first scene to a very interesting movie, where whatever is in that box ends up being the entire plot device that pushes the story of the movie forward. Is the husband secretly storing drugs in the box? Then why would he need to keep it cool? Maybe it's some sort of alien fetus that he has to transport, like in that Hideo Kojima game. Someone else said that they had a situation where an ex of theirs had a friend who was on methadone, and when he visited, he had a fridge lockbox that contained his prescription. So this whole story made them think of that. But the question still is, what's in the box? Let me know what your best theories are down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. My husband asked me to steal my little brother's inheritance and give it to him. He doesn't like that I earn 4 times as much as he does, and thinks that it's his right to take my little brother's inheritance money because he's married to me. But then I found out he was cheating. Here's how it happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I am leaving my husband tomorrow. I'm a 29-year-old female and my husband Jack is 30. Our marriage was short, only less than a year, but rocky from the start. I don't even know what possessed me to say yes. Maybe loneliness, maybe desperation, I don't know. He and his family are openly hostile to my only brother who's 18, as I had to take care of him after our parents died. They saw him as unnecessary, and only after the marriage I saw how horribly Jack treated him. For your information, my brother lives in our apartment, since he wasn't old enough to have his own place. Jack is, I'm almost ashamed to say, not a very good man. He is lazy and never does any house chores. My brother does everything that Jack should have done. He plays on his computer all day long and goes out to drink with his buddies almost every day. He never strikes me or my brother, but he does treat us like his caretakers, and I'm honestly getting sick of it. My last straw was when Jack insisted that I give him the inheritance money my brother was set to get for college. I refused. Money has always been a sore spot to him, as admittedly I earn 4 times what he does, and I even keep our finances separate thanks to a lawyer uncle's advice. I fired back saying how he should stop doing freelance work that pays him dirt and not snooping around my and my brother's business. We fought, and in the middle of the fight he left, leaving his phone behind. I don't know what caused me to poke around on his phone, but guess what? Not only is he a lazy piece of work who doesn't even have a stable job to pursue a passion I don't even understand, he's also a cheating jerk. I was heartbroken. I cried myself to sleep. Then I called my lawyer uncle to serve him the divorce paperwork. Jack doesn't know that I know about his side piece. He still treats my brother like a nuisance and demands me to hand over our inheritance to him. I kept silent. So did my brother. He's going to a weekend outing with his buddies tomorrow, and I will pack up my things and leave. Divorce papers on the table. I cut the lease to our apartment, so he'll only have a week to figure out where he's gonna go. I got a place across town closer to my relatives. I'll take care of the rest as I go. I deeply regret marrying this man. He has wasted 2 years of my life, and I am so angry angry at myself that I was too blind to see how I never should have married him. Tomorrow I am leaving him, and I don't care if I seem like I would not fight for my marriage. I don't have the energy to deal with a grown man who still thinks like a frat boy. So there actually was a final update to this whole thing. Over the weekend, I moved out with the help of my two best friends, my cousin and my uncle. They were very helpful, and in a day, we finished packing up everything and left the apartment. I'm now living closer to my uncle, my mom's little brother and his family, while my brother was waiting to move into his dorms. My uncle helped me install cameras outside of our new place, change the passwords, PIN numbers, and phone number while we're at it. I took a week off of work, and thankfully my boss understood and let me. I wish I could see his face when he came back to the apartment and found the place empty. Some of my friends were called, but they told him nothing and said that they didn't know where I went. I haven't told anyone but my uncle and my best friends. Jack came to my uncle's place, but my uncle kicked him off of his property, and while Jack threatened to go all out and contest the divorce, my uncle gave him an ultimatum in return: sign it without a fuss or I will try to get alimony from him. Hopefully Jack won't make a hassle out of the divorce proceedings. As for myself, I'm just happy to be away from him, even with no alimony or divorce settlement. From this point onward, I will have no contact with him or people associated with him. It seems cowardly, but I'd rather avoid the drama. I believe we'll have some kind of drama later, but honestly, as long as he signs that divorce paper, I'm fine with that. I finally talked to my brother and apologized for getting him into such an environment. He was understandably disappointed with me, but forgave me. He said that he was glad that I decided to leave, and we had a good crying session over that. Right now, I'm trying to make it up to him. He's a good kid, smart and tough cookie, and he deserves better. Should he need to, we'll go to therapy, and he convinced me he was okay, but he was mostly angry on my behalf, but I'll keep an eye out for that. And to be clear, we are not from the USA, but our laws regarding marriage and divorce are pretty clean cut. I don't think that he would get any money from me. So am I the jerk for leaving my husband the way that I did by abandoning the apartment without a word after what he did to me? If you're in a relationship and you feel like you have to say, I don't know what possessed me to say yes to that relationship, maybe loneliness, maybe desperation, then you probably should not be in that relationship. That's how she opens this entire thing. So even before this whole inheritance situation, before the cheating situation, why waste either of your time by being in that relationship in the first place? On top of that, she may not have learned it until she was married, but she looks at Jack as not a very good man. He's lazy, he never does any house chores. He plays on the computer all day and goes out to drink with his buddies almost every day, and if those things already bothered her before, marrying that person is probably not going to make those things change. But with all that said, I'm trying to understand Jack's perspective on why he thinks he was deserving of this inheritance money. Because even for some, if the wife here, the original poster, were to get inheritance money, they would still say that Jack doesn't have a piece of that, doesn't have a right to have that money. But in this case, it wasn't even the original poster's money. It was her brother's money. There's no real explanation as to why he would think he deserves that money unless it was through some technicality where all the money went to the OP first and then she had to dole it out to her brother and then he wanted to intercept that money on the way there. But if that's the case, you're just stealing with more steps involved. And you add that on top of the fact that there's already a lot of financial tension because she earns a lot more money than he does, 4 times as much. It's kind of a disastrous scenario, which also kind of highlights what an empty threat the whole alimony thing was, because she says, or more specifically her uncle says, either sign the divorce paper or she'll go after you for alimony. But how could she possibly get alimony from him if she earns 4 times what he does? Maybe alimony works differently in different parts of the world, but it doesn't seem like there's any teeth to that bite. But then the whole cherry on top of all of this is that Jack was cheating on her, which I think for most people in most relationships, that's the last straw, the unforgivable point of no return, which I'm sure made the decision to divorce him that much more simple. But let me know how you see this. Do you think that Jack was in the wrong for insisting that he gets the inheritance money? Would it be different if it was her inheritance money exclusively and not her brother's? Does he have a right to that since they are married at the time? Let me know what your thoughts are down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for perpetuating ethnic stereotypes about jorts? We have 2 workplace cats in one area of our work site. They add value to the work site, we all love the cats, and the worksite cat's presence is not the issue. One of the cats, Jean, is a tortoiseshell cat we have had for years. The other cat, Jorts, is a large orange cat and a recent addition. Jorts is just kind of a simple guy. For example, Jorts can't even open a door when it's ajar. He shoves it whether he is going in or out. So often he closes the door he is trying to go through. This means he is often trapped inside the place he was trying to exit and meows until he is rescued. My colleague Pam has been spending a lot of time trying to teach Jorts things. The door thing is now the main example. It's a real issue because the cats are fed in a closet and Jorts keeps pushing the door closed. Jean can actually open all other interior doors since they are a lever type knob, but she can't open this particular door if she is trapped inside of the closet. Torty Jean is very nice to poor Jorts, and she is kept busy by letting him out of rooms that he has trapped himself in. So this seems easy to resolve. I put down a doorstop. Pam then said that I was depriving Jorts of the chance to learn and kept removing the doorstop. She set up a series of special learning activities for Jorts and tried to put these tasks on the whiteboard of daily team tasks. I erased them. She thinks that we need to teach him how to clean himself better and how to get out of minor barriers like this, and when he gets a cup stuck on his head, for example. I love Jorts, but he's just dumb and we can't change that. Don't get me wrong, watching her try to teach Jorts how to walk through a door is hilarious, but Jean got locked in the closet twice last week. Yesterday, I installed a cat cutout thing in the door and Pam started getting really huffy. I made a gentle joke about you can't expect Jean's tortoiseshell smarts from an orange cat Jorts, which made Pam furious. She started crying and left the hallway. Then she sent an email to the group including volunteers and went home early. In her email, Pam said that I was, quote, perpetuating ethnic stereotypes by saying that orange cats are dumb and is demanding a racial sensitivity training course for me before she will return. I don't think that's relevant, but just in case, Pam is a white person in a mostly minority staff. And no, she is not ginger / does not have red hair. So am I the jerk for enforcing an ethnic stereotype by joking that orange cats are often dumb? This statement actually made Pam cry and storm out of the room. If anything, it sounds like the OP here is trying to look out for the safety of the cats. If Jean already got stuck in that door that he can't open twice, what are they going to do when that happens when nobody's in the office for a long period of time and Jean is stuck in that closet without any water? Even if Pam owns an orange cat and is sticking up for all orange cats, the cat itself doesn't care if people think that he's dumb or not. Some of the responses are pointing out that if OP is cat racist, then Pam is an ableist. As pointed out in one comment, somebody says, installing a swinging kitty door, you were modifying Jort's physical environment to ensure that areas necessary for daily living, like eating, are fully accessible to him despite his disability. Repeatedly closing the door to his dining room clearly communicates Jort's desire for either this reasonable accommodation or a magic potion that would give him the ability to walk through walls. So which side of this are you on? Do you think the OP is a cat racist, or do you think that Pam is an ableist? Let me know down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for snapping when I found out that a guy saw my girlfriend naked? I'm a 25-year-old male and my girlfriend Lydia is 23. She lives with a roommate who has a boyfriend, Jeff. We gathered at their place last Friday for pizza. After a while, Jeff asks Lydia if she is still scared of being here alone the nights the roommate goes over to his place and I can't come. Lydia has always had trouble with being alone at night, and most nights I stay on FaceTime with her until she falls asleep so that she feels safer. The roommate laughs and says that if she hears a noise in the bathroom, at least it will be a ghost and not her locked in passed out. Lydia, my girlfriend, just mouths to me, "Explain later." When we get to Lydia's room, I ask her to explain, and she tells me that this afternoon she wasn't feeling good and ended up fainting in the shower. So Jeff had to break the door to the room to get in and help her. She said that she was already feeling better and she didn't want to tell me because I was going to be worried about nothing. I said that it wasn't nothing if she had fainted and that I should be aware of these things to help her. She said that now it would just be a funny story about how Jeff broke the door and roommate had to cover her with a towel so they could come to the rescue of her naked body. That moment, I saw red. I asked if Jeff had seen her naked and she couldn't be sure since she was unconscious, but roommate said that he stood out of the bathroom until she was covered. I asked if Lydia thought it was fair for me to not know that another guy had seen her naked, and she said he didn't actually see her naked and that it shouldn't matter since he was only helping. I shouted that she just said that she was unconscious and couldn't know if he saw her. She told me to be quiet or they would hear me. And I shouted that I didn't care, that a man saw my girlfriend's body and I had the right to be mad. Jeff and the roommate come in and explain that he never saw anything. He just broke the lock and waited outside until the roommate gave him a clear. I said I didn't believe him, and the roommate jumped into his defense, saying that she was right there, making sure the situation wasn't embarrassing so they could take proper care of Lydia without her feeling weird. I said that if she was a kook, I wouldn't be. Jeff then shouted at me, saying that I should respect his girlfriend and mine, who had spent a whole day saying that she was fine, but still looked a little pale. He said that he only did it because he cared about Lydia, and that I was a jerk who didn't deserve any type of help. Hearing him say that he cared about her was it for me. I left without as much as looking at Lydia as she begged me not to go. Over the weekend, Lydia had to be admitted to a hospital because she didn't feel good again, and Jeff and her roommate prohibited me from seeing her, saying that I didn't deserve her. Obviously, the whole hospital thing sucks, and I wish I was there for her, but I still think that I was right. At this point, I'm not mad at Lydia anymore, just at Jeff. So, am I the jerk? In this story, it sounds like the roommate and Jeff were legitimately just trying to help her. Unless they have a history of Jeff being creepy or weird or trying to go after Lydia for some reason, I don't really think that they would lie about that. And even in that case, the girlfriend, the roommate here, probably wouldn't be okay with Jeff having that sort of relationship with Lydia right in front of her eyes. So I doubt that there is some sort of conspiracy that the roommate, Jeff's girlfriend, and Jeff are in cahoots together to try and get Lydia hooked up with Jeff because the roommate is Jeff's girlfriend. But none of that is as important as just the fact that she has somebody there for her if she gets hurt in the shower. I mean, people can slip and fall in the shower and could die, especially if nobody is there to help them or to come in there and call 911. And whatever this medical issue is that's causing that might actually happen if she's already in the hospital by the time we get to the end of the story. Making sure that situation is okay is a lot more important than whether Jeff saw anything or not. But let me know how you see this down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for giving my coworker a fantasy novel for Secret Santa and trying to broaden her horizons? For Secret Santa, I got Sarah, who put down a bunch of books that she wanted, as well as other things like socks, tea, and candy. I was a little bit disappointed, to be honest, because I really like to shop for people and give really cool gifts, and these were just blah things. When I looked up all the books to get her, I found out they were all romance novels. I felt kind of cringe buying her romance novels, so I looked at the common themes and found a really good fantasy novel to buy her instead called Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. It has romance in it too. I figure if she likes to read, then she'd be happy to broaden her horizons and branch out. I also got her some Baby Yoda socks to go with it because who doesn't like Baby Yoda, and some Bigelow tea that look good. We did the exchange this morning and she looked visibly confused when she opened hers. She changed her face to be surprised and happy, but this really bothered me. In the break room later, I heard her talking and complaining, saying that she didn't get why someone would get her these things. The other person said they probably were upset they got a woman instead of a man, which I thought was rude. I'm a woman too, but I'm just not a pumpkin spice latte and Hallmark kind of woman. Then after, I saw her give the socks to someone else, saying that they could have the socks for their kid. I was honestly really bothered by this. I put thought and effort into a gift. Am I the jerk for getting her something to branch out of her humdrum romance genre and Baby Yoda socks? I thought everyone liked Baby Yoda. So there are a few different ways you can do Secret Santa. Sometimes you just get anything you want for a person based on what you know about them, but other times, like it sounds like this time was, you agree in advance on a theme and then you get gifts from that theme. This was kind of a more specific version of that, where not only is it a theme, but it's a theme for each person, it sounds like. And if that's how they're doing this Secret Santa, then it sounds like he didn't really follow the rules of this Secret Santa. He kind of just said, oh, her taste is boring, it's blah. He called them humdrum romance books and wanted to get her something that he thought that she would like instead. But the thing is, it wasn't really something that he thought she would like. It was something that he wanted her to like, or that he thought was better than what she already does like. And it wasn't like she was not gracious when receiving it. She still pretended like she was happy. But I don't think you can really expect somebody, even in private, to be happy about the thing that they didn't even want in the first place. But maybe you see this totally differently. How would you interpret this whole Secret Santa situation? And let me know, jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for asking my neighbor to move her craft room to a different bedroom. My husband and I live in an upstairs 3-bedroom flat, and the flat below us is the same layout. The house has been for sale for a while, and recently a woman bought it. It turns out she doesn't have any children, so I found it strange that she bought a 3-bedroom house, but soon I found out it's because she runs a craft business from home and needs 2 bedrooms to run it. The problem is, unfortunately, she has decided to use her main bedroom, which is below us, as her main craft room. At first, it was fine as she hadn't fully moved in, but now it is driving me crazy. She is in that room almost all day long, and I can hear her walking about and the faint noise of the machines. I don't spend long in my bedroom during the day, but when I do go in, it just annoys me knowing that she's constantly there. Like, why can't she have picked the smaller bedrooms since she knows the kids are at school all day? She always stops using her embroidery and sewing machines by 7 p.m., but she's told me that she can sit up until 10 p.m. some nights, finishing off orders, which plays on my mind. I go to bed at 9 p.m. and I can't sleep for hours as I lie there listening for her every move. Just knowing that she's awake and walking about drives me crazy, as I find it so selfish that someone would buy a flat and work from home. My husband says he can barely hear a thing during the day and that I need to calm down. He also doesn't see a big deal about her using her house as she pleases. Yesterday, I finally had enough and I went to her door. I told her how I was feeling about everything and how I can hear the faint noise of her machines. She apologized and invited me inside to show me her setup. All her machines are on some sort of anti-vibration padding to stop as much noise as possible, so she claims the noise should be minimal and that you need to expect some noise from neighbors. I told her I don't make any noise, and that's when things took a turn, as she said she can hear my kids running around and jumping off furniture all evening, but she would never even dream of complaining because it's just one of those things when you share a building with other people. I left before I said anything else that I regretted, and I thought that was the end of it, but today my husband came home from working overnight and asked if I had said anything to the woman downstairs, as she was very cold and blunt with him when he said hello. I told him what happened, and he said that I am the massive jerk. I've spoken to a few of my friends who think I've handled this completely wrong and that I'm a bit of a jerk for it, but I don't know what else could have been done. Am I the jerk? The neighbor here sounds much more reasonable than the OP does. I mean, she's going out of her way to make sure that she only does what she's doing in her own home at very specific hours, never past 7 p.m. She even bought all these anti-vibration things in order to minimize the sound even more, and I'm sure even after this conversation, she probably went to an even greater length to reduce the sound, even though she technically didn't have to. And despite all of that, she doesn't say a word when the OP's kids are running and jumping off furniture every day. It sounds like the OP is demanding some sort of unfair situation where the neighbor must be silent exactly when she wants her to be silent, but because the OP has kids, they can make noise when they want to. The OP says, even though it's very faint, just knowing that she's awake and walking about drives me crazy. It's hard to understand why that would bother her so much, because pretty much anyone living in any shared building is going to hear some sounds from the other units. But let me know how you see this down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. An entitled mom and her kid come up to me in a coffee shop and try to take my baby. While panicking, I punched her and broke her nose. Now she is trying to sue me for everything. She even sent a man in disguise to serve me the lawsuit. Here's how it happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. The setting is in a local coffee shop. One afternoon after our mommy and me yoga class, I know it sounds dumb, but it's a great way to meet mommy friends, me and my baby decided to get a coffee and catch up. Well, I would get a coffee. She would get that sweet boob milk. My baby, the lightweight that she is, passes out after that booby milk. I decide to be wild and get a second cup of coffee. I'm drinking my second cup of coffee when a wild entitled kid and an entitled mother appear. The entitled kid says, "Oh, a baby." I smile, but go back to reading the news and sipping my coffee. When I look up, the entitled kid is trying to pick up my sleeping baby. I panicked, obviously. I started yelling, "No, no, 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 no." The entitled mother butts in and said,
"Oh, she wasn't hurting her."
And the entitled kid whined, saying,
"I just want to hold the baby."
I told them, "She's sleeping and you're too little to hold her, honey. She's heavy." The entitled mother said,
"Oh, just let her hold her. My entitled kid is very mature."
I responded by saying, "She is not a baby doll. No."
"You don't have to be a bee."
Excuse me? During this time, the entitled kid tried to pick up my baby and woke her up. So the baby starts crying. I pick her up and start hushing her. "Now see what you did? Leave us alone."
"She just wants my daughter to hold her."
Then the entitled mother tried to grab my baby. I said, "What the? Get off of me!" And I turned away to keep the baby away. The baby is crying at this point, and the entitled mother says,
"Just let her hold her."
She keeps trying to steal the baby from me. I yell out, "Help!" And then I open hand punch her in the nose. At this point, the coffee shop employee jumps in and pulls her away. One of them says that they called the police. The entitled mother's nose is bleeding. The entitled kid is sobbing. I kind of feel bad for the kid. She's pretty little, but her mom should teach her better. The employees ask us to stay and wait for the police. The entitled mother says,
Good, she assaulted me and traumatized my child.
the baby is still crying, so I give her that boob.
She's exposing herself to a child. She is a pedo.
I ignore her, and the baby finally calms down. The police came and asked us each what happened.
She exposed herself to my daughter and assaulted me.
Me, being scared that I was going to jail, said, that isn't true. She tried to steal my baby. I was just protecting her. Luckily, the coffee place did have cameras. She got arrested for an attempted kidnapping. I have to go to court for it next month. Jumping into the future, there is an update. We go to court on April 14th for the criminal charges against the entitled mother for attempted kidnapping. I didn't expect to update before then, but then this happened. Me and my baby went to the park this morning and we got back around 11 a.m. There was a man standing on our porch looking lost. The baby was in her stroller sleeping and I put my hand in my purse and onto my mace. Can I help you? Joe, I'm looking for this person here. I have a package for her. He pulled out a thick envelope. It was Cardi B level thick. I'm her. I can take it. I take the Cardi B envelope and as soon as it's in my hands, I sign for it. The delivery guy rips off his fake mustache and delivery guy hat, revealing his real identity, a legal intern. Cool. You're being sued, by the way. Good luck. Yeah, that's right. I am being sued by the entitled mother. Why would the woman who tried to snatch my baby be suing me? How much damage could I have inflicted? Well, apparently I did $25,000 worth of damage. In this envelope was about 10 million pages detailing how she is suing me for everything that is wrong in her life. Apparently, I had broken her nose, so she's suing me not only for medical related bills, but she also wants me to pay for them to fix her pre-existing toed nose. Oh, and of course, emotional damages to her and her child. Apparently, the entitled mother has anxiety and depression because of me. The entitled kid has PTSD from the incident. Finally, I'm being sued for slander and character assassination. Because how dare I say she tried to steal my baby? Of course, at the end, she said that she would be, quote, willing to settle out of court if I would drop the criminal charges. Well, I took that letter to my lawyer and he said the judge would laugh her out of court, especially if the criminal trial goes in our favor, which is basically guaranteed. So I will be seeing her in court on April 14th and I will see her again in July for the civil case. So am I the jerk for breaking her nose? Who goes around and just randomly grabs people's babies? I understand if you're a little kid and you don't know any better like this little kid here, but the mother is just gonna go up to some random person and try and take their baby, or try and force the original poster here to have the baby picked up by their kid who probably can't even carry this baby. I mean, why would you take on such a risk to have some random stranger hold your baby when that stranger could drop the baby by accident and then they're off? Then it's your problem. This whole situation with a guy dressing up like a delivery guy, I've actually heard about scenarios where this happens when people are trying to serve other people. They'll pretend to be somebody else or pretend to fall over and then serve them with whatever it is they're trying to serve them with. I've seen a bunch of different variations, but I actually haven't heard of a fake delivery guy with a fake mustache. I think a lot of people honestly would have done a lot worse to this entitled mother if they try to come at their baby than just breaking their nose. And probably one of the worst parts about this whole thing is that the entitled mother is teaching the kid to behave that way and reinforcing it. So let me know what you would do if this was your baby and somebody tried to just grab your baby in public. And let me know, jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for telling my aunt to flash those honkers for a family group photo? English isn't my first language, and I also want to say, I don't think or feel that I'm the jerk, but considering my mother's reactions, I want it up for judgment. So background first. I am what you would call fat. I'm working on it, but still a long way to go. I've always been large, and I've always had what you call a baby face. It's something I've been bullied for growing up, so it's a sensitive topic in general. My aunt is an individual who likes to get in her way. If she doesn't, she will push until it goes her way. She is also the kind of person who likes jokes on others' expense, but never on her own expense. If someone would joke about her, she will be sulking or tell them off. I am not fond of her due to being a target of many of her jokes over the years, mainly for being big. Now to the event itself. We were celebrating my grandmother's birthday this weekend. Everyone was vaccinated, don't worry, and all my cousins, not her children, uncles, aunts, and their spouses were there. My aunt was hosting. Everyone except my sister sister who just last week had a baby. She had an infection, and with RS virus and COVID, she was still at the hospital and could not attend, which is a shame because my nephew was the first great-grandchild. So it was decided we would send her a copy of our yearly family photo. When we were setting up the shoot, my aunt said she had planned something. She comes out with a big toddler cap and a pacifier, saying that I should wear it and use the pacifier sitting in the front as a fun gesture to my sister. I was horrified and I said no way. My aunt just replied,
Yes, you will. It will be fun.
When I said no a second time, this time with emphasis, she raised her voice saying,
Don't be difficult, OP. Come on, put it on.
My mother just sighed and said to just indulge her, knowing my aunt will push until I do. Well, here's the thing. I don't know what I was thinking, but I said, okay, I'll do it if you pull your honkers out and pretend to breastfeed me. Everyone went quiet and my aunt's eyes went wide and just said, Excuse me? In a very offended tone. I followed up by saying, Come on, flash those honkers. And all hell broke loose. My cousin giggling, my mother and aunt stood there choking with their mouths wide open. My aunt's husband shouted, What did you just say to my wife? Get out of my house. More than happy to comply, I took my car keys and left, accidentally leaving my parents to a $60 cab bill since I was their Lyft. When my mom and them came home, my mom was furious and said she had never been more embarrassed in her life and I needed to apologize, which I just shook my head saying, I won't. She deserved it. She grounded me. Not that she can since I'm over 18, but she hasn't spoken to me since. And my aunt also kicked me out of our WhatsApp group and Facebook group, so I need an outside perspective on things. So there you have it. Am I the jerk for telling my aunt to flash her honkers? Whew. I had to record this one a few times because of how completely absurd this was. I don't understand why he would go for that as the thing he would say of anything else, but I do understand that he would be very frustrated and probably hurt that not only are they constantly poking fun at him for being fat year after year and for having a baby face, but they even want him to humiliate himself and dress up like a big baby in a group family photo. How could they not see how degrading that is unless he was the one that wanted to do it in the first place? It's totally different if he comes to his family and says, hey, I got this funny idea. I'm going to be this big baby. You got a pacifier? I'll put it in my mouth. But he obviously does not want to do that and obviously does not like that being his identity. He probably could have got that message across a lot more clearly if he didn't say this to his aunt, but instead explained how this hurt him. But this was a more funny outcome anyway. So let me know if you think he is the jerk or not for saying this down below. Before we jump into the next one, if you guys haven't seen yet, we actually have some YouTube shorts now. So you can check them out via a link down below or just go to the channel page in the shorts section. I think you'll like them, and if you end up seeing them, leave a comment that says, Honkers. Am I the jerk for eating McDonald's the day before Thanksgiving? So my aunt and her kids are staying at my house for Thanksgiving because they live far away from us. Anyways, today I was going to get McDonald's, so I asked everyone if they wanted anything. My aunt looked at me with disgust. She asked me if I was serious. I didn't understand what the problem was, so I said, yes. She asked why I would even bring up McDonald's the day before Thanksgiving. I was confused and asked what the problem with McDonald's was. She told me that she always fasts her kid the day before Thanksgiving and that even offering them McDonald's was a temptation and disrespectful to their beliefs. I said, I'm sorry because I never knew that she did that and left to get McDonald's on my own. I came back to my house and I ate it in the kitchen. She saw me and told me she couldn't believe how disrespectful I was being and told me to eat in my room. I told her she's being ridiculous and I should be able to eat at my own table. She told my mom I was being rude and back-talking her and told me that she didn't want me to eat around her or her kids at Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow because of my bad influence and how it might run off on them. So am I the jerk for eating McDonald's the day before Thanksgiving? I know in the past when I fasted myself, it actually is a lot harder when you see other people eating food right in front of you until you're further into the fast usually. But in this case, it's this guy's own house. They are over as guests in his house and she has to assume that he doesn't have the exact same belief or is going to be fasting before Thanksgiving as well. I mean, clearly he didn't even know. You can't really expect people to just know how to behave around you in their own house. But let me know how you see this down below and jerk or not a jerk and why. Am I the the jerk for how I reacted after I found out my husband ran a secret background check on me before we got married? We've been married for 3 years and I only just recently found out that before we got married, my husband ran a background check on me and my family. I found out because we were on vacation with his family and they were doing things that I had no interest in participating in a few times, so I stayed behind. He let me borrow his laptop because I left mine at home. I made a folder with my name and I was searching for it when I found another folder with my name. The folder was full of reports on me and my family, including my extended family and 2 of my childhood friends. I read as much of the reports as I could before my husband and his family came home for the day. At first, I was just hurt he would do something like this without talking to me first, but as I read more and started finding out things about my family and friends that I never even knew, I started to get angry. It's hard to put into words, but I felt like I had gone cold all over, but also like it wasn't me reading these things. So when I saw my husband, I exploded on him in front of his family. At first, he tried to say that it wasn't a big deal, and his cousin chimed in to say that it was normal and that he wasn't the only one who had done it with their family. When he saw that I wasn't calming down, he tried to get me to go into our room so we could talk about it privately, but I told him I wasn't going anywhere and that I was leaving. My husband told me to stay and he would sleep somewhere else or he would leave, but we were staying in a house owned by his parents and it felt weird for me to stay and make him leave, especially since his family was still there too. I ended up staying at a hotel for the night and we both flew home shortly after, cutting the vacation short. So am I the jerk for how I reacted after I found out my husband ran a secret background check on me before we got married? Oof, I think this would probably weird out most people, especially if the husband never brought it up later on to say, hey, before I really knew you, this is what I did. But it doesn't even sound like that's the case. It sounds like they had already been dating and were about to be married, and then he did this massive investigation of everyone, her friends, her family, and her extended family. The odd part about this is the fact that he kept all of that. If he was worried about something specific and he found out that that wasn't anything to worry about anymore, why would he still keep all of these reports on all these people? Did he just forget to delete them, or is he planning on using these for some reason in the future? Somebody who worked for a private investigator firm said that they did these sort of background checks every day, including for who the office manager was dating, and that this was more extensive than a basic background check by a private investigator. He said it's very, very unusual to cast this wide of a net off the bat. Unless something needs further research, it doesn't make sense. This would be a separate and distinct deep dive on everyone listed, not just a background check on one individual, and he would be charged accordingly. So either there was something specific that he was worried about, or maybe it really is just standard protocol for this family to do a deep dive on anyone entering into the family and casting this wide of a net while doing it. But it definitely doesn't sound like this is a very cheap thing to pull off. So would you be weirded out if you found out the person that you were married to had done this much of an investigation about you and your family, but only discovered it years later? Let me know down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for letting my cat sit in the roasting pan? I bought a new roasting pan yesterday. I got it home, took it out of the box, and left it on the table. I come back in the room 2 minutes later, and no surprise, one of my cats is happily sitting in it, looking at me with big eyes like, for me? It's adorable. I take a picture and send it to the group chat for my family saying, look what we're having for Thanksgiving. I get the normal responses of lols and crying laughing emojis. Then my sister goes, I hope you're not actually going to cook the turkey in that. You know my husband is allergic to cats. I say, yes, I'm going to cook in it, and I'm literally about to wash it and put it away until Thanksgiving. She keeps going on about how disgusting it is and how they won't be eating anything out of it. It's gross. I just don't respond. My mom calls me about an hour later and tells me my sister is very upset and my mom is just going to get some roasting pans from the dollar store for the turkey because my sister is afraid of her husband getting sick. Am I crazy? It's a metal pan that I've already washed thoroughly. It's not like hair can be stuck on it. My sister used to share a pillow with our old cat and let it lick her plate. I know my brother-in-law is allergic to cats, but he sits on my couch, which even after vacuuming has a lot more cat on it than a pan that has been washed. So am I the jerk for letting my cat sit in the roasting pan? I just assumed that washing a pan clean, especially if it's thoroughly washed like how the OP is saying here, that there wouldn't be any issues at all. But apparently some people are saying that there are possibilities of cross-contamination even after a thorough washing. One response said, wash pan or not, one can't reasonably expect a total lack of cross-contamination from the cat if it's allowed in the food prep area. My guess is the sister has expressed similar concerns in the past which have been brushed off, hence the reaction. And I think that is probably the main issue. They probably talked about the husband's allergy a few times and maybe it wasn't taken seriously. And maybe the issue is not necessarily that the pan itself isn't particularly clean, but the fact that the cat has access to the whole food preparation area. I guess part of it comes down to how severe is the cat allergy. If it's so severe that he can't be around anything at all all, then it's probably not a good idea to have Thanksgiving at this house in the first place. But let me know if you think there's any risk of cat allergies here or not, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for my petty response to my boyfriend's purposeful incompetence about chores? My boyfriend has started pretending to be bad at basic life things like doing dishes and laundry like he can't do it, so I have to do it. I felt pretty frustrated with that and told him straight up that I knew he didn't forget how to clean since he moved in with me. He was always very competent living alone, and I didn't appreciate him forgetting how to do chores. I said that when I asked him to do dishes and he refused until he finally did them wrong, that I was not stupid. He said that he was trying his best and I was wrong for saying that he was trying to manipulate me, and that from his perspective I asked him to do something and he did it the best he could, and I kept at him because it wasn't up to my impossibly high standards and he couldn't win. And he wanted me to believe him when he says he is trying. Anyway, this may be petty, but I decided to give believing him a try. So he had bleach stained my favorite little black dress. Instead of getting mad, the next time he had a family event, I put it on. He asked me if I was really gonna wear that. It looked messy. I said that I love that dress and understand accidents happened, so I wasn't mad or upset that it had bleach spots on it actually. I thought it looked kinda cool. He said that he thought it looked bad, and I said if he wants, he could Sharpie on the white spots real quick in the Uber. It ended up looking even worse. Another time, we were having dinner and he had done the dishes, but some of the cups and bowls in the dishwasher were upside down, so they filled with dirty dishwasher. I took those cups and bowls, dumped them out in the sink, but I didn't wash them further and served his food in them. He said that it was dirty, and I was like, they just came out of the dishwasher. It's just water, it's fine. He said that no, it was disgusting, and I said it was really no big deal. I was getting over my impossibly high standards of cleanliness, and I really didn't think that it was gross. The last time, I had cooked for a work party of his. After cooking, the dish needed to cool about 30 minutes before being refrigerated. I had plans with my friends that night, and I asked him to put the dish away after it cooled. He forgot. The next morning, he noticed the dish was never refrigerated. I said it was fine. It was just a mistake, and it would probably be fine to eat. There wasn't a lot of meat in it. He got frustrated and said, you can't serve meat left out overnight, even if it's only a little. And I said, oh, I think it should be okay. Stuff happens. He stopped being so lazy about chores after he realized that I seem totally okay with leaving stuff done badly and that he will be living with it. But I feel a little bit petty for having been dishonest about it. I actually hate how my bleach dress looked and my stomach turns at dirty dish soap and unrefrigerated meat. Am I the jerk for being petty? This is actually pretty clever, and it seemed like it actually worked, where on the flip side, I can't possibly imagine how he thinks this whole story about how he forgot how to do dishes and laundry would even make sense. Who would ever believe that? Since when? And when was there a gap in time when you stopped doing dishes and laundry where you could even forget how to do them? Even if he wasn't willingly incompetent like some people put it, and he just never knew how to do these things in the first place, pretty much anyone can learn how to do any of those things in a very short amount of time. And I'm sure he learned how to do all this stuff real fast when he was faced with having to eat unrefrigerated meat or off of a plate that was still dirty. But the more important question is, do you really want to be with somebody who's faking something this dumb? What happens when something serious comes up and he's trying to get out of that? Like a situation where you actually need his help. So let me know how you would have handled this down below, and jerk or not a jerk. A Karen buys enough of our product to get a $10 coupon. It gets sent to the wrong address, so we offer to give her a $25 coupon as an apology. But that isn't enough. She loses it and ends up suing my company, and in the process loses $2,000. Here's how it happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. This story is from a few years ago when I worked in the legal department of a 1,000 plus store national retailer. As a part of my job, I handled customer complaints at Elevated when the customer threatened legal action. Our customer service center forwarded Karen's call to me after she threatened to take legal action. Karen left a message claiming that she was not provided $10 in customer reward coupons, where you spend $200 and receive $10 in coupons in the mail sort of thing. This was before apps, based on her purchase of clothing for her son and daughter for back to school. I looked into it and I called Karen back. It turned out we had an old address associated with her rewards account. No big deal, right? Well, I spoke to Karen and offered to send her the original $10 coupon and an additional $25 for her trouble to the correct address. That did not satisfy Karen. She claimed we should have known her address and threatened to sue us if we didn't pay her $1,000 cash. Her rationale was that it would cost us at least $1,000 to defend the suit. She was in a state which our company did not have any offices, so we should just pay it to her. I declined, but still forwarded her the $10 coupon that she was entitled to pursuant to our rewards program. program. Sure enough, she sued us for breach of contract, fraud, and any other conceivable charge. I went to my boss, the COO, and I told him this story. He asked what I wanted to do. I said I'd rather pay legal fees to a defense attorney than pay Karen $1,000, and he agreed. I contacted outside counsel, our awesome attorney, explained the situation to him, and I kid you not, he said in a southern drawl,
"Oh yeah, I get to sue Karen? I should be paying you guys." There are a lot of lawyers in the legal community who would love to sue her, as she is reckless, unpleasant, and a total pain in the behind to deal with. I'll gladly take your case.
He agreed to defend us at a reduced rate. Part of our defense strategy was to countersue her under the state's frivolous lawsuit statute, which would move the suit from small claims court into the larger civil court. Awesome attorney filed our answer and counterclaim. Although Karen was an attorney, she was not a defense attorney, so she had to engage her own attorney to defend against the counterclaim. After a couple of hearings, she offered to settle for no more money exchanged. She didn't even get the extra $25 coupon that I offered her, and the dismissal of both suits. I talked with Awesome Attorney about continuing our claim, but he advised it would probably be worth settling and being done with it rather than being vindictive. Although being vindictive would have been fun, courts tend not to like that, so I agreed. My company ended up paying the Awesome Attorney $900 in attorney fees. The Awesome Attorney later called and told us that the Karen attorney charged her $1,700 to defend the suit. Although I would have liked to continue with our suit, I think her having to pay $1,700 over a $10 coupon sent to the wrong address is sufficient justice. Was I the jerk? Getting offered the original $25 coupon is pretty good because it was an addition to the original $10 coupon. So even if it wasn't, that would still be 2.5 times what she was supposed to get, but it was that plus the original $10 coupon, which I think for most people getting $35 for free in exchange for this promo is a pretty good deal, but not this person. She wanted the $1,000 in cash and it totally blew up in her face. So instead of taking $35 free dollars, she spent the $200 originally, paid $1,700 to defend herself, and then of course didn't get the $35 that she was supposed to get in the first place before going down this route. So all in all, she went basically almost negative $2,000 instead of just getting the free money from the coupon. It's interesting that the attorney already knew exactly who she was and was eager to want to jump in on this and try to sue her. So it makes me wonder, what did she do in the past to make him dislike her that much before even knowing about this scenario? So let me know how you would have handled this down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. The client is not always right. A sexist client gets recorded and canned from his cushy, high-paying job that he didn't deserve. Here's how. I work at a big ad agency with large companies as our clients. We expect to work in partnership with our clients. We fire clients that treat us poorly. Usually, we treat each other with respect. Our biggest client has 5 different teams we work with, and one of them was led by Baseball Dad. Baseball Dad was the type of necklace marshmallow who gets wasted at his kid's baseball game and starts heckling the other kids. Just a boorish jerk. He never approved any of our work, putting out awful stuff that his internal team made, even though he's paying us literally millions of dollars to make ads for him. His product was struggling to sell and he blamed us, even though we were killing it with the other 4 teams. He didn't know this, which comes back to bite him later. However, none of this is why we needed revenge. I don't care if a client wants to fail. I collect my paycheck regardless. But he crossed several lines. Number 1, he was extremely sexist. He used to call my female coworkers sweetheart in the most condescending voice, comment on their clothes and bodies, and wink and smirk at me while they were talking because we are both men, I guess. These women are highly accomplished, serious people, and they are like family to me. A huge misplay on his part. Number 2, Baseball Dad was abusive to us. He would constantly interrupt us, tell us to shut up, call us vendors, and remind us that he could fire us at any time. Number 3, Baseball Dad would lie. He would tell his boss, an actual nice guy but too busy to check closely, that we missed deadlines or forgot deliverables because he never checked his email. We would then have to awkwardly struggle to prove Baseball Dad wrong without calling him a liar so that we could keep the business. He never owned up to anything that he said to us on the phone. And lastly, number 4, the final straw took place on a call between Baseball Dad and one of my project managers. I saw her run out of a room crying. She told me Baseball Dad said to her in a one-on-one call that she should worry less about budgets and more about wearing that nice top that she wore at our last presentation. Gross. Revenge time. I told my cool boss that our team had enough enough of baseball dad. We were at our wits' end with his nonsense. Several of my coworkers were looking for new jobs. It's hard to hire good people, so my boss asked me to give her a day to figure this out. She wanted to lose baseball dad without the entire business. The next day, she showed up with our IT guy who set up voice recording on our conference line. It's illegal to record people without consent in my state, but baseball dad was late to every call. Too bad, because if he ever had showed up on time, he would have heard the new message kicking off every call. This call is recorded. His team heard it and had no problem with it. I suspect they hated him too. For the next 2 weeks, we recorded everything, every word of it. One of my audio engineers made a supercut of every terrible thing baseball dad said. Every sweetheart, shut up, no one cares what you think. My project manager even baited him into repeating what he said about her clothes on a budget call. This time, he literally said,
"You're much better at flirting than budget, sweetheart. That's why I like you."
The supercut sounded insane when we played it all together. It was an incredible piece of evidence. We sent it to his boss and his vice president and threatened to walk away from the work 2 weeks before product launch if baseball dad wasn't disciplined. They immediately apologized and begged us not to leave. They said it would be handled by Monday. My one sweet project manager had been so grossed out she got to do the best part of the revenge. She anonymously sent the supercut to his wife using the email address she had posted on LinkedIn. I don't know what became of that, but I imagine it wasn't good. On Monday, baseball dad wasn't on the call. My boss snooped and found out that he had a few complaints prior and got immediately canned after we sent it through. He didn't see vendors as people, so he was shocked that his words towards us counted against his third strike policy. Apparently, he melted down completely as he was being fired. He said it was all because we were incompetent, but the other 4 team leads had all put in their numbers and said that it wasn't on our end. Their products were slaying. Wish I could have seen it. I imagine he came home to a very angry wife as well. We're all hitting the bar tonight in his honor. Thanks, baseball dad. Well played indeed. I'm sure that this supercut actually does probably sound insane. When you combine everything he said over a long period of time, it's gonna sound pretty wild no matter what, since we already know some of the expressions that he tends to use. It's always weird when somebody has a job to do, but they can't help but let certain aspects of their personality bleed into the work when nobody wants that, nobody asked for that. So do you think this revenge was just right, or do you think it was going too far? Since he ended up losing his job, the wife situation, and everything beyond. Let me know down below. Since you are a furry, you are automatically a Speedo. I'm a furry that sometimes wears part of my fursuits out in public. Today, a lady came up to me in the street and started screaming in my face that I was a Speedo and that I was going to scrape somebody. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. Before we jump into it, obviously some of the words in this story have been adapted so that we can actually talk about the story. This might sound weird, but I'm a furry. I have been inside the community for a year now and I love it, absolutely. To clear things up, furries are not Speedos, and there is a misunderstanding about that. Just to clear more things up, fortunately, some Speedos have a weird thing for using their fursuits to do bad things to people and getting in their own suit, going out and doing bad things also. Now, the furry community is greatly misunderstood. So people think that we are scrapists or Speedos. This fortunately is not the case. We are just a bunch of people sharing a hobby to draw our characters and wear them as suits. We like wearing the fursuits because of the fact that our confidence boosts up and we feel happy in them. Now, furries who go outside in their fursuit actually just do it for fun and love to cheer people up. I was doing this one day, walking with half of my suit, my head and my paws and tail, and going about on what I thought was a normal day. But woohoo, was I in for a treat. I was walking down to the coffee shop, which I love going to, as most of my friends go there to hang out. Then, out of nowhere, a wild, entitled mother walks down the sidewalk and notices me. Her face had a look of disgust, and she covered her kid's eyes and stopped to yell at me.
You Speedo, why are you wearing that suit? Are you gonna go scrape someone?
Now, being inside a fursuit, especially wearing the head, it gets hard to hear people, but geez, this woman screams so loud. I could hear her maybe miles away, if that. Excuse me?
You know what I'm talking about, you scrapist! You scrape the innocents, the little ones!
I guess this woman must have been reading the news because on it, there were some bad reports of furries scraping each other. Sorry, I don't do that.
Of course you do, you're wearing a suit that turns the victim on!
Lady, I'm just trying to walk down to the coffee shop to meet my friends. I can't and I won't scrape anyone. Sorry. The entitled mother just looks at me and I can tell she's about to do something that will piss me off. She screams.
Help! This person is trying to scrape me! Help!
Just then, a police officer who had been lurking around arrived. He said, "Are you okay, ma'am?"
No! This Speedo is trying to scrape me!
Now, let me clarify something. I am 13. 13! I am not a Speedo. So when the police asked me if it was true, I pulled off my head. My fursuit head. The entitled mother was shocked. "Sorry, I'm just a 13-year-old who likes wearing these fursuits," I said in an annoyed tone to the officer. The officer looked at me, shot a look back at the entitled mother, and then back at me a few times.
He's faking it! Speedos are short, right? Short men!
"Ma'am, you heard him. I don't see how they are a scrapist or a Speedo or an adult." The police officer then said sorry and went back on guard. I looked at the entitled mother and said, "Don't ever assume again, please." After I said that, I put my head back on and left. I had a great time with my friends at the coffee shop, talking about going to Texas Furry Fiesta, a con at Dallas, and just spent good times. I still laugh at the thought of her thinking that I was an adult. Was I the jerk? It seems like most furries do get a bad rep from people just generalizing that if one person is like this, then all of them in this group must be like that. But that is basically the definition of prejudice. You're prejudging them before you even know any of them. The few furries that I've ever met seem like nice people, and they're just into this hobby that they have, and they're not doing it in some sort of hurtful or twisted way like people always seem to think. Most of the viewpoints of the entitled mother are pretty much just the basic ones that a lot of people have, but the one that surprised me is that she said that wearing the fursuit was some sort of strategy to turn on the victim. I have never heard that one before. That's kind of a bizarre leap in logic to get to that conclusion. Anyway, as long as nobody's hurting anybody, what does it matter what their interests are when they're minding their own business? But maybe you see this totally differently. If so, let me know what your thoughts are down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. I got a job at a place that I believe to literally be a hellmouth, a physical location on the path to hell, or a Native American burial ground, because the things that happen at this job start off very tame, but things at this job end up getting weirder and weirder until ultimately there are some bizarre things that happen that I can't even explain how they happened. You can decide for yourself, but here's how it started. I spent almost 7 years in property management before vowing to never ever go back. I don't know if it's just my local market or if it's like this everywhere, but in the course of working for several different companies, I encountered everything from discrimination, retaliation, and a whole host of other crazy, unacceptable things, culminating in being fired by a manager because she thought that I might try to take her job. After that, and my vow to get as far away from property management as possible, I was lucky enough to be offered a great job as a project manager at a local printing and direct mail company. I loved working there, not because I was on fire for the industry, but because I got used to problem-solving skills daily. I liked having a lot of interaction with various departments and coworkers. I got treated like a human being by everyone, and I didn't have to worry about any of the crazy shenanigans that seemed to plague my old field. Unfortunately, I was unlucky enough to be the last project manager hired before an extreme slowdown in their business, and after just shy of a year, I was laid off. I was terrified when it happened. I had been unemployed for a stretch before that job, and my savings still hadn't recovered from that. The day I got laid off, I called a former manager of mine, one of the good ones, from my not so long ago property management days, because she was always one of the most plugged in networkers in town. I was absolutely floored when the very next day she offered me a position as her assistant manager at a nice pay upgrade from what I had been making at the printing company job. Apparently they were about to move forward with a candidate, and then I dropped in out of the sky. She told me that both account delinquency and the paperwork at the property were a mess, and that she was in the process of retraining the residents. Apparently previous management had been not good, and the residents were running wild, but it wasn't anything that I couldn't handle. And even though I never wanted to go back to property management, I felt that I wasn't in a position to say no. And hey, I figured maybe things would be different this time, and if not, I could just do a good job for a year or so, save up a ton of money, and then move on to something I enjoy. I went in legitimately filled with optimism. Well, I am 2 months and 19 days in, and I think I'm about to crack. It's a nice looking property in a nice area, but I legitimately wondered if this place was built on a native burial ground or perhaps a hellmouth. In the short amount of time that I've been there, I've experienced the following. Number one, I've been verbally assaulted by residents in what I would consider an extreme way 4 times, 2 of which resulted resulted in me crying in the back room after they left. Number 2, I witnessed an unstable employee losing it / dramatically quitting and then coming back 3 times in 1 hour. Number 3, I discovered an employee running a side car repair business all day, every day at work instead of actually doing work for the company. Number 4, I've been present when a dude high on meth and road rage followed my coworker onto property and spent an hour chasing maintenance employees with a bat and trying to break into our front office. This is one of 3 times we have had to call the police since I've started. Number 5, I had a resident I have never spoke to before walk into our office and then aggressively run up to my desk with no preamble and scream in my face that I am a bee from hell in a possessed sounding voice while throwing money orders for her late rent in my face. Number 6, I've been questioned in an extensive and vaguely threatening way by what turned out to be an unmedicated paranoid schizophrenic resident about whether or not I am of God before he left the office. Had a full meltdown and had to be handcuffed by the police and taken in for psychiatric observation. Number 7, been present for the hit and run of a maintenance man driving the company golf cart on property. He's okay. Number 8, had a non-resident family that was crashing our pool, refused to leave and instruct their children to poop in the pool after we asked them to go. Yes, they pooped. Number 9, discovered that a convicted murderer somehow got through our criminal screening process and now runs a large number of sketchy illegal occupants who may have something to do with a number of car break-ins and acts of vandalism that have recently occurred on property in and out of his apartment. All of that is in addition to 2 apartment fires, buildings being struck by lightning, a host of just plain weird natural phenomena, and everyone here acts like this is all very normal. But it seems like a lot for under 3 months. I've never worked anywhere that had a comparable volume of this sort of stuff happening. And as far as the rest of the job goes, well, I cleaned up the account delinquency pretty quickly and have largely done good things, but frankly, the training has been inadequate and I'm repeating being assigned numerous impossible tasks and deadlines, which I hate. I'm also extremely isolated as the front office only has 3 other employees, and there's this weird dynamic because I'm under the manager, but over the leasing consultants. Everyone is pleasant, but it's really stratified and doesn't seem like that will change. I'm very unhappy. It's so bad lately that I find myself increasingly freezing and being unable to complete simple, doable tasks, which isn't like me really. I have to give myself a pep talk to get in the car and go to work. Also a new, not normal thing for me. I obviously can't just bail, and a big part of me feels like a terrible person for wanting to head for the hills already when my manager just brought me on in good faith at a great salary. But the place itself is terrible and appears to be cursed, and I don't enjoy the work. I honestly don't think I can make it a full year. When is the soonest I can start applying for new jobs without looking like a total flake to prospective employers? How do I explain the reasons why I want to leave my current job to prospective employers in a way that is honest but doesn't make me sound like a melodramatic crazy person? Because if I stay, I'm pretty sure I will be murdered or possibly swallowed by a sinkhole that is inevitably going to drag this place to some netherworld or hell dimension. Also, I would like to be given projects that are challenging but not unrealistic. And finally, if I find a good non-property management job, how do I leave without upsetting my manager, who will almost definitely feel personally betrayed? I've worked with her before and I've seen her get touchy about things like this with her employees at other properties. The person before me left the place in shambles and she moved me into that slot because she knows that I am trustworthy and loyal. I know she's expecting me to be in it for the long haul. Here's an update from the Hellmouth. Many non-property management applications are now out and circulating in the wild, mostly for HR jobs. We've had to call the police twice since my letter was posted. First, $3,000 worth of equipment was stolen, then someone tore the doors off of a garage where our AC units are stored and sliced them up to steal the copper from them. While trying to have lunch outside this week, I've had on different days things thrown at me by a squirrel, been attacked by a yellow jacket while tiny jumping spiders simultaneously tried to jump onto me, and had a large bunch of random bugs that maybe were some sort of shield or stink bugs drop into my lap from out of nowhere. So yeah, it's basically more of the same. The newest work challenge are mistakes being made in the system for the month by me because the manager left out key steps when training me on how to do certain tasks last month. The manager, however, says that I should have known to go and do these. They never discussed, they were counterintuitive, and no way to know about them steps, and that I needed to be more careful because she can't carry my weight. I tried to address the no-ness of this with her, as well as the fact that many of the projects or the deadlines for them that are being assigned to me are actually impossible for anyone to complete. But the basic gist of her response was that I was just going to have to do better / be perfect, and also be be ready to take on more tasks. Additionally, she is doing things like telling me that I need to complete a set of tasks by end of day on the first of the month, which is also the date and time listed in the shared Outlook calendar appointment/reminder that she personally sent, and then telling me mid-morning the day before that the task should have been finished no later than that same morning, and that I had been aware of that. No. A month and a half later, there is a new sticky situation update on the Hellmouth. Last night, I got a text message from my manager about 7:30 after the working day was done asking for a favor from me. She has decided that she wants to write up one of our leading consultants and wants me to compile a list of everything I have ever seen that could be a write-upable offense. She wants me to include stuff from over a month ago or more that the manager knew about but did not address at the time. The reason for this sudden mission is that the consultant put in a request for time off in our system a week ago, and when the request wasn't denied, she assumed she was good to go and did not come in for the 2 days she had requested off. My manager did not contact her on the days that she was not in, although she did privately fume that not denying was not the same as approving, and did not say anything to her about the time off when she returned to work yesterday. However, she is telling me that she is planning to write her up possibly twice today. I seriously don't want to be a part of this. I'm not saying there are not issues to address with my coworker, but nothing has ever been addressed with her previously, period. And going straight to 2 write-ups, the company has a 3-strike policy without even ever speaking to her about literally anything seems horrible. She asked me if I, quote, thought the coworker would bounce afterwards, and it sounded like that's what she was hoping for. About a week later, there's another update. As I write this update, a faulty fire panel in our filing room far from my desk is sounding an office-wide alarm, and I am tasked with shutting it off while doing, well, work. It's too loud to just let it go, but manually silencing it only yields 1 minute and 30 seconds of silence before it starts up again, so getting any work done is challenging. Additionally, there is a wasp situation in the office. I had to decline going alone into the woods next to the property with an irate resident with a Unabomber vibe who wanted to show me the specific squirrel that he claims was harassing him 2 years ago and has returned in order to vandalize his new vehicle. And I have also just discovered that my increasingly unhinged manager has placed a 2-way microphone in my office by my desk. Yes, it's another glorious day on the Hellmouth. For everyone who said that my manager was not my friend and that it sounded like some really poor management was going down on my property, I'm sorry to report to you that you were all very right. My manager, it turns out, lies constantly to everyone about everything. She also refuses to address staff issues, has been trying to force us to spy on each other, and since we're not doing that, has moved on to motion-activated cameras and secret microphones, and has been consistently ordering me to do or say certain things to coworkers or residents, and then hanging me out to dry after I follow her instructions. I've never felt so unsupported in a job, or like I've taken so many crazy pills, and that's on top of a lot of other just bad management choices.
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.